Started off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, yo, set it up.
Surfing on the web and I'm shooting at 3. I've been goated when I got my G. I'm an alien boy from a different planet, yeah. So I got my drink, I'm riding in the 1920s Model T Ford. Call her Era Lord. Call me Levi, playing on the keys, boy. And I'm about to put my gloves on. If I said it, then I meant that. Yeah, I like that one, I'm about to get that. Crash that whip for the drumsticks, whiplash. I'm about to get them all. Are you with that? In a white boat, surrounded by blue. I want one, but I got a cop too. I wanna fly high in the sky, arms out wide, trying to soar from a bird's eye view. I'm on fire, Ricky, Bobby, cracking the pavement, Whitney, Bobby. I'm a Saki bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Bruce Wayne been a dog, and I keep it 101, cause I'm feeling kinda spotty. You sipping on some rock, and I'm sipping on octane. The only thing around my neck is the blockchain.
Now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, yo, set it up.
NFT, Twitter, blockchain. Seeing with the ghosts and we ballin' like the Brown James. Crypto. We can make a trade, get the memo. Refuse not falling for the FOMO. Listening to Coffee with Captain. You know we worldwide, they loco. I ain't never gonna stop rapping. Orlando, yeah, we working magic. We rocking Ethereum NFTs. I just went and caught me a half base. Man, I got a shout out
Started
to
off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
Breaking the mood to choose one, but they got knowledge to move, son. I'm shocking in shades with my brother in shoes. Yeah, them blues is coming. Even though it's hard to pick, eeny, miny, mo, soda on the mix, no biting lips, it's time to go. Index number 1, no thumbs up, you gotta scroll. Looking at the ghost in studio, it's time to go. Had a helmet on by myself until I met a mask that wanted to have a face off. So had to bring my chainsaw, full tank of gas in the ride with my brakes off. I'm A1, but a different kind of steak sauce.
GM, welcome to Coffee with Captain. Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day, great start to the day. We are live over on YouTube as well as Abstract, at least for the rest of this week, and then we'll see how next Tuesday treats us on the XP front and determine where to go from there. But I'm Cap on Coffee with Captain, episode 1120. Appreciate y'all being here. Shout out to the early GMers, Web3 Warhead, Thomas over there in the YouTube chat. That is the chat, without a doubt. And we'll see. We might get a little spicy this morning. We'll see how I'm gonna see how spicy Jesus gets before I determine how spicy I'll get. But spiciness across the board from the Abstract community following the XP changes this week. While that XP dropped on Tuesday, I don't know if I missed anything or was just a little bit of a lag, but I really saw the timeline up in a roar yesterday. And then not just the Abstract community, the artist community, specifically the 3D artist, pretty fired up over Doodle's AI, which I don't know if ironic is the right word, but it flipped me from, I'll just say I went from, I wasn't really bearish Doodle's AI, but it was more of like a nothing burger for me, or near nothing burger, I should say, to bullish. I am bullish Doodle's AI primarily based on the response from those traditional 3D artists, and they're kind of up in arms over it, which to me is definitely not a nothing burger. Whether it's a bullish sign or bearish sign, I don't know, but it's definitely not a nothing burger if it's catching such blowback and vitriol from the traditional 3D artists of the world. GM Block Mage, as well as the rest of everyone helping us get warmed up here in the chat, both on X. We're also live on X video. If you prefer to watch the X video feed, we're live both from my account as well as the Coffee with Captain account. Just joined us here on stage. Mike, pleasure hearing from you more frequently here on stage. Greatly appreciate your voice. And Dobbins, a legend in the chat. I'm curious, Dobbins, what is the what model did you use to make this 3D mutant looking good? About as good as a mutant could look. I don't mean any offense by that. It's a good looking mutant, but the 3D body, the full body 3D is hitting. Getting some legends on the stage here, so excited to get into this. We're just going to jump into this abstract conversation. I'm not fudding abstract. It's fine. I'm sure they're going to remain a fine L2. They're still a top 10 chain in terms of daily revenue. I don't know what driving that, quite frankly. I don't know where the revenue is coming from. I need to double tap and do a little deeper dive. I will say, once again, crypto native teams continue to struggle with comms and PR, and it's not just them. It's easy. It's relevant. It's top of mind. But I will say once again that Discord mods on power trips, it's comical to me. And while it's comical when a Discord mod gets on a power trip or ego, I don't know what it is. It does have an impact, a very negative impact. And like, I'm not like, I saw some people like calling for Discord mods to be fired or team members to be fired. I'm not calling for anyone's job, but teams need to get like, understand the impact it has. And I don't think you want a Discord mod who's, for all intents and purposes, an entry-level employee. I mean, this isn't a me thing. Like, I don't care. But I've connected with most people in this crypto industry, like two ways. Like, not that I just follow them. Most, like, we've not only follow each other, we've engaged with each other. I'm not deep in the abstract streets. I think I'm in that Discord. I'm definitely not active in that Discord. But I went and I've never even connected with this person on X. Again, maybe I'm nothing here and like I'm not dialed in. I'm not connected to the movers and shakers. Like if you look at like Kaido or Zeet or any of the other platforms that talk about your smart followers and the not even reach. Like I know I'm not like I don't have the biggest reach on this app. Would never claim to even have remotely close to the biggest reach on this app. But I'm like a top 0.1% of a CT account when it talks like who I'm connected with and who I engage with. It's not me saying this. It's the Kaidos, the Zeets of the world. And yeah, we've not only connected with, we've had, Tuesday, we had Adam on the show, the CMO of OpenSea, who's, their announcement on Monday, Tuesday was, I mean, on some accounts, like the biggest news of crypto in Q1 thus far. Very grateful for those opportunities. Again, this isn't like a me thing. It's just like my point driving home is you've got a entry-level Discord mod who is disenfranchising, alienating, I don't know, fill in the blank, a lot of the core community and brand ambassadors and supporters. And it's just such like an unforced era. That to me is bigger than the XP haircut. Like, it's not that deep for me. If you missed it, I got 32 XP this week. 32, not 3,200. Like pain, we were even talking about it yesterday after the show was when the first time I saw it. And I said, he's like 3,200. I'm like, no, 32. 32 XP down from the prior week of 5,600. Now, to be fair and to be fully transparent, if you remember, I did have a dip in, like, we didn't stream every day because they changed how you, like, technically not getting into all the details, but previously we had like RMTP and streamer keys, and we basically went live from StreamYard and that pushed it out to Abstract automatically. Now I have to capture the X video feed link, post that into Abstract, and then it broadcasts from there. Whatever. It's just a change. But because of that, I didn't have 5 days of streaming last week. That said, I still hold Pingu. Not a ton, but I hold Pingu. I hold some MNFTs, like some Z NFTs. Again, I've not been farming. I've just been using the chain as I naturally would. Hola, Diego. I've been talking about Abstract, promoting Abstract, not just streaming on Abstract. I've talked about Abstract not pretty much, I think every single day, every single weekday on this show to hundreds, if not thousands of people for over a year plus. Maybe they don't value that. I don't know. I've definitely not been fudding Abstract. And I understand why they're making changes. But from a business decision, attempting to remove my bias, I don't think they want to be turning who have been some of their core supporters and have promoted their platform. I've said I thought streaming was one of the differentiating factors. That portal was good. It's one of the things they had differentiating in a very competitive blockchain space. They were different when it came to their portal, when it came to streaming. I thought they had something good going for it. And it seems as if they've completely nerfed any sort of bonus or XP from streamers. And to me, again, it's not an XP thing. I know it is for some, but for me, it's maybe I'm being harsh when I say gaslighting, but the gaslighting coming from Discord mods is gross. That said, let's get some hands in here. I saw Shaylin threw the hand up first, and then we'll get Jesus in. We also got Bandit and Anthony on stage. A few legends to kick things off in this cold open. I will do some screen shares as well. Mayhem went and found the OG shoots clip where Luca says, this was again back a year ago, January of last year, actually. He says the number one streamer on Abstract will make millions of dollars. Not aging very well. Shaolin, GM, what brought you up this morning?
So, hey, thank you for having me. What's super interesting, though, is actually, I think you kind of nailed it just now in a lot of different ways, right? One, I think when it was more community focused, when you had Luca talking about Abstract, you saw a wave and support from the NFT community. It makes sense. It's natural. He's the leader. And then when he took a couple of steps back, it became more of a product-related, product-driven product, right? The platform, the spotlight, they took a lot of the things that had gotten a lot of traction and edge, which is streaming, the portal, as you said. But I think what happened is that it became more of a business. And that meant serving and looking at the bottom line. It looked at optimizations. You started seeing more gambling on the chain with regards to the apps. And it really kind of shifted the narrative of how they actually optimize and built with developers.
Yep.
I have some experience. I don't want to name names, just to kind of keep this as neutral as possible. I've worked with them and part of the gaming community as a publisher. And what I've noticed is that when we were talking about the games itself and in terms of development, the focus was on how to monetize, not necessarily the user, but like how do you optimize towards the platform itself? So as you can imagine, if you're on the portal, it's important. If you're in the spotlight, it's even more important. And more importantly than that, you have to stay on that every single week. Otherwise, your utility, your value, the attention, the retention of your app drops dramatically, 30 to 40% if you're not on Spotlight.
Oh, wow.
So how do we do this, right? You have to gamify all of your interactions within the community because you're basically cannibalizing against each and every other app on the platform. And so now you're competing, like if you're a game, you're competing with the other games. If you're iGaming, you're competing with other kind of iGaming sort of situations, right? And to be clear for the people who aren't on Abstract, they call them game of skill and game of chance. They actually had to create this, right? When they had the meta of, meme coins, when they had the current meta of Z. So to answer your question, the major reason for the shift in volume has been Z. Z cards have been blowing up all over Abstract. But what's odd is I was actually on another Spaces the other day where one of the founders of Bearish, who manages Z, was like, we program for all of this, right? We're really ahead of the game. But just yesterday, it's like I did $20,000 in Z and I got they only got 20,000. They did 20,000 volume in trading and they only got like a couple thousand in XP. Goes, this makes zero sense. I don't know what's going on. We might be moving and telling people to port over. Now, again, I can't verify this 100% who the person is, But I do know that that was the sentiment, which is like, maybe we should just move off of abstract altogether. And I was just like, wow, you went from like everyone loving it because Zeet created all this volume, to even the people from Zeet or working with the team or maybe a community member wanting to move off of it. So you just see this narrative shift and change. So just to recap real quick, it's like it went from community focused to like transaction based, revenue based, total volume based, and it became more of a product play in terms of validation for whatever reason. I don't know what their inner goals are in terms of like KPIs of why they're trying to do things. And you're seeing everyone have to play the game who's a builder and as part of the community. And then the real question is who really wins from that situation? Now, again, I'm not trying to FUD it. I'm just trying to drive some perspective and some value thinking about some of these things that are going on. But I do realize that there's really smart people in the community who aren't abstract who understand that. But I guess the real question is how does this benefit the people who are outside of that? And that's the real question.
Yeah, great question. And to your point, I get it from a business standpoint. I get the desire to drive vanity metrics. Actually, I had some really smart people, some people who really understand tokenomics, who really understand crypto from a funding, from an investable standpoint, and they were critical, bearish on abstract early on because they weren't catering to DeFi. They weren't catering to whales who would move capital in TVL on chain, and they were bearish that they weren't rewarding farming that works in terms of transactions, in terms of TVL, and thought they over-indexed too far to the NFT enjoyers, to the NFT holders, to the community, to streamers. And I don't know, it seems to me, and I don't understand, I mean, I get it, but I'm also not like a tokenomics expert. I'm not a DeFi expert. I've never launched a blockchain and raised millions of dollars. But it seems to me as if almost they've over-indexed now the other direction and are rewarding agents, bots, volume. Like they went from, hey, streamers are gonna make millions of dollars, the hold your NFTs, to nerfing all that. And now it's just about, do you have a gambling app that is going to drive a lot of volume? Do you have something like, I understand it from a business standpoint, and I understand the vanity metrics. I understand why they might do this. I think how they've done it and how they've communicated it or not communicated it. And then most of the communication you're seeing from an entry-level Discord mod who is gaslighting their core community, who have been their most vocal supporters over the last year. That's just really poorly done. And I think that's what's leading to the backlash on the timeline. Like, hey, we've all known that XP is a moving target. We've known that it is dynamic and would change. And I have no issues with changing it. It's how they've done it, how they've communicated it. And I mean, I had shared here some of the posts. Like, again, I'm just to be clear, I'm not calling for anyone to get fired. I don't know, and I shouldn't call him a kid. I don't know. For all I know, the guy's Abs Chud is 60-year-old that's really passionate about modding Discords. The screenshot you can see here from Joxy Coxy, who said, "How to kill your chain 101, shit on your NFT community." This was screenshotting Abs Chud's post yesterday in the Discord that says, "GM to everyone except people holding NFTs only for XP." Murdoch quote tweeted that and said, "This is an example of a Discord mod abusing their power. I've reports from trusted sources that the mod is awful with people no idea how to treat another human. If you're hiring mods for Discord, make sure they're decent people and know how to treat people. Abstract Chain needs a few new mods. Being respectful to people, especially people who typically are angry all the time, is not an easy thing." I will double tap on that. Like, you couldn't pay me enough to be a Discord mod. I'm not looking for a job right now, but there's not like, actually, I take that back. There's a number for everything, but it's just not something I would enjoy doing. It had to be like, it had to be a lot of money. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not something I would enjoy whatsoever, because I'm trying to think how I can say this out without also upsetting people. You're dealing with a lot of people very rarely are you going to make all of them happy. And oftentimes, whatever you do, you're going to have 10, 20% who are just going to be angry. They're going to be disrespectful. And you got to kill them with kindness. You can't, you got to be respectful to people, especially those who are typically angry. As they say, I got back to the quote here, back to Murdoch's post. Language is super important. Tone is super important. If you have bad mods, it can easily kill a community. I would say I have close friends have said at least 2 mods in Abstract are overzealous mods, have zero idea how to treat people and go crazy with power. Fake internet authority has gone to their head. I hope Abstract fixes this. If they need help finding good mods with a proven track record, I'm more than happy to connect them with 5 to 10 good applicants that can easily replace them. I will add to that, and then we'll go back to Shallowan for a response. And then I do want to get Jesus in here. I know the stage is popping off on this one this morning. As much as I said, like, I don't want to be a Discord mod. Actually, I don't know. For Franz's Birds, I kind of am a Discord mod with our war room. Now it's not like I don't. It doesn't feel like that because we've curated a really amazing community over the last 4 years. That your vibe attracts your tribe. It's not. It is gated, so maybe that helps. But and people do get like. Not everyone is friends in there. Like there's people that have muted or blocked each other in Discord. We have a wide range of people, wide range of black backgrounds. Not everyone gets along. There is like some back and forth at times, but we also have no expectations. Like people aren't in there for an airdrop. They're not in there for a TGE. It's just a gated community. It's a group chat essentially. And I think it's also like, there's, a couple hundred people in there. It's not tens of thousands of people like you might have in some of these bigger ones, but I can appreciate the challenge that these Discord mods have, because in a small community of a couple hundred people, albeit it's very active, it's also, even despite it being small, you also still have people that go at each other every once in a while. Like, so imagine that now, scale that by 100, by 1,000, and inevitably you're going to have tensions at times. It's just very challenging, but I think also drives home how valuable, if you have a good mod, if you have good community managers, you have people that can handle those dynamics that aren't easy, but do so with tact and proper language, proper tone. It's also very challenging to convey tone in text. It's much easier with things like voice inflection to drive home how I'm attempting to say something when I'm talking as opposed to text. So again, salute to all the good Discord mods out there. I don't envy your role, but I do appreciate, and it's unfortunate that it's times like this where it's kind of like they're like almost like an offensive lineman in football, or like a referee. They're underappreciated, not really spoken about until there's an issue, and then it gets brought to light. So while we're talking about maybe some of the challenges Abstract's having in the Discord sentiment right now, which isn't positive, I at least want to take an opportunity to salute those, because there are really good Discord mods out there, and it's a very challenging role. And I would say the great Discord mods are probably some of the most underrated people in crypto. Like a lot of people give a lot of love to like the social media interns and the good shit posters, while also valuable for a crypto native brand. That's a lot more fun without much of the downside. The Discord mods have to just take eggs to the face sometimes for nothing they've done. They're not making decisions on how the company's driving or what decisions they're making. They're not setting the XP, but they got to deal with it. And very, very, very challenging role that I do believe is underappreciated. That said, let's go back to Shallowan, and then we got an idiot coming up who I pinned one of his posts. We also have Mike coming up again. Shallowan, thoughts?
Oh man, I've been working on creating articles lately, and I've been learning the art of like persuasion and building an argument. But man, I just realized that sitting on the stage today, that's just literally what you do every day. You just build up and drive a lot of value just with your insight, to a point. But that being said, enough glazing. I've been a community.
You can glaze me all you want. I appreciate it. I'm kidding, but no, thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Only after a couple of pounds of beef ribs, my friend.
It's all time.
Right. So it's one of those things that I've been in the community management moderation space probably since the 5 years that I've been here, and I've actually ran teams of moderators, and so I completely agree with you. So what's super interesting again is the community approach versus like the chain approach, right? If this was, some of the people you met, we mutually met, whether it's like PP or Burko, who are like, some of the longest, outstanding community managers, or I don't know exactly their names or titles. But they meme it, they make it, they lean into the culture. They don't let it get fudded because it's impossible when you laugh at the situation, right? I take a completely different approach. I look at the people who fud hardest and I become friends with them. My
Hey,
goal when I was
can I
manager
interject real
was
quick?
that was the
Because
relationship specialist.
you want to talk about, sorry for the interjection. You just like what you
Yeah,
just
of
said
course.
there, I want to double tap on because this held true far beyond Web3. I'm going to date myself real quick. And I know he's not probably a good person to quote in today's world for many reasons. I'm not going to go there, but the quote that I originally remembered, and the company has done well, so remove the individual. But at the time when he was the CEO of Microsoft, Bill Gates said, "Your best customer can become your most challenging customer." I'm butchering the quote, but basically, like the person who's fudding you, the person who's most upset with you and what you're doing, if you reach out to them and you fix their issue, they will be. If you can turn a detractor, someone who scores you a 1 or 2 on an NPS score, and you reach out to them, you follow up with that customer, and they call back and they change their NPS score to a 9 or a 10. Those are now your real promoters. Those, because think about yourself, your experiences in retail or e-commerce or anywhere you've ever purchased something or anywhere you've ever had a bad experience, you're going to tell far more people about that bad experience than you tell about the good experience. Oftentimes you have an experience that goes exactly as planned. You don't talk about it. You're not an ambassador. You're not referring friends and family there. However, if you've ever had a bad experience and then they make it right, now all of a sudden you're telling everyone about that because that's memorable. You stick in their memory. They're telling their friends and families because it's very uncommon to have a 1 out of 10 experience with anything. They reach out, go above and beyond, and flip you to a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It's very uncommon. It doesn't happen that frequently. And when it does, it sticks, you remember it, and you become a true brand ambassador more often than not. Again, not thinking I was going to quote Bill Gates this morning. I didn't even actually quote him, but this stuff actually holds true far beyond. I see Poppy's coming up. I know he's going to double tap on this with his background. Like if you're able to flip those detractors into promoters, they will become your biggest fans. Sorry, back to you, Shel.
No, you're good. I mean, you pretty much hit it. I just created a post. I don't know if I can have the privilege to adding it to the top, but
Absolutely, go for it.
yeah, so it's pretty much the same concept, right? This actually worked for me. So I was running, a Web3 gaming community. And as you can imagine, the shift in narrative when it went from everyone loves it for 2 to 3 months to everyone hates it for like, I don't know, till now, right? And so literally it was my job as community manager to risk mitigate a lot of these things. I literally made the best of friends with some of the largest fudders and the largest holders and the most known people in the space. Where after having spent the time in Discord and then going to a DM and then having a 90-minute phone conversation, I met him in IRL at NFT Paris. He introduced me to Grail, some of the larger investors in both NFTs as well as the gaming space. And I had the pleasure of meeting 5 or 6 of them. They all gave me the peace of mind. And it was one of those things that I took that opportunity and transformed myself from just a community manager to an advisor to a relationship retention specialist. I mean, there's so many different names you can go with. But the reality was it changed the entire landscape because then they became positive on the timeline. They became positive in the chats. And they were a bit reluctant because they would almost get fudded in a sense. But the reality was the damage was reduced, the sentiment changed. I couldn't do this forever, by the way, because again, I'm not the product manager, and there's Web3 sentiment for the sentiment for Web3 games also died down too. But I didn't have those people in my ear anymore. And the other thing to just account for is, again, to your point, the reason why most people are here is because they're super fans. They're highly engaged. They're maxis. They're bag holders. People want to do the things that they want to do, and then the things that they don't like, they want to fud hard as possible. But they're just the same person depending on the light they decide to choose, right? Whether you want to use that as a Star Wars reference or whatever, it's just what it is. And I think that's the biggest thing when you talk to founders and you talk to projects and people building. How do you manage of where community management really takes full ownership in the age of AI, because a chatbot can't do this. It doesn't understand the dynamic. It doesn't understand the shift and the paradigm of human interest, of the ability to kind of go back and forth, because I think it would drive an AI nuts. It's not rational. But nonetheless, these are the people who are stewarding brands. They're stewarding sentiment. They're stewarding vibes, and I think that's the biggest impact when you get for opportunities that come to the timeline like this, is to really, like, if you're a community builder, like if you're a community manager or moderator, this is where you get to come into the flow, add your thoughts, right? Change the timeline in some instances, and then create more argument and debate. Because I think this is one of the topics that's super necessary as you start to see the differentiation of like these things happening in this space, especially in the age of Claude Code, Claudebot, I forget the name, OpenClaw. And it really helps push why Web3, the narrative of like community-driven user acquisition, community-driven sentiment and vibes. If you're doing IP, like there's just so many different ways to shift the narrative in this direction based off of this one negative experience.
Well said. We're going to go to an idiot next because I had invoked one of his posts, and then we will get through all these hands. Appreciate everyone's patience. Clearly, we've struck a nerve. We haven't went spicy cap for a while. I don't know if I've ever even thrown the spicy emoji in the title before. It's not even engagement bait. It is. I saw it was my read on the sentiment on the timeline. I felt a certain way. It's not even really that deep for me, but I do hope, again, similar to my take on Monday about Yuga and the Bored Ape Yacht Club and communications and frequent communications are good. Like, once again, comms, your community, it can be a superpower here, having a team behind you. It also can lead to some of your more challenging days if they turn against you. And often it's not just what you say, but when and how you say things has a huge impact in this space. But it also, what Shallon said, where like the debate, like the pushback, that's important. Like, you don't just want a Discord full of people who are glazing and just bag pumping whatever you're building all the time. You need the candid feedback. Like, you should have that conflict from time to time. It's not a bad thing, but you can't get defensive. You can't start taking shots at people or gaslighting people when they're unhappy with something. Like, listen to what they're saying. Like, use that to your benefit. Don't dig your feet in and start taking shots at them. That's just not the way. And idiot, I'm going to pull up your post here in a second. But GM, I'll show this on stage, but feel free to take it whichever direction you like. Appreciate you joining the stage today.
Hey, skip me real quick. I'll be right back. I'm at work. I'm dealing with something right now.
You got it. Just throw your hand back up when you're ready, and we will go back to you. I think we had, well, you know what, Jesus, you want to get in here? I don't see the hand, but I invoked you yesterday as soon as I thought we'd be talking about this. I know you have some thoughts on this. I know you've been streaming on Abstract, and you've been an Abstract supporter from the jump, as far as I know, and deep in many of the ecosystems. We'll go to Jesus, and I'll get to the rest of these hands. Jesus, GM, pleasure. Appreciate you joining us.
What's up, bro? Yeah, man, it's definitely something I'm like very passionate about because we've invested so much time on Abstract. As you said, I was there in testnet, so like being able to stream on day one and hearing the excitement from Luca's voice, which you have I think that video pinned at the top. Obviously, if you thought you were going to be streaming on Abstract and making $1 million, like, I think you're a little bit delusional. But at the same time, it's like there's
But Jesus, I'm sorry to interrupt, but didn't he say he was going to get like all the biggest streamers and it was going to be the hottest place to stream? Like, isn't that like because of his connections? Didn't he say that?
Well, I mean, he said a lot of things. And, most founders do say a lot of things and they don't end up coming to fruition. So, I've learned in the 5 years to take a lot of things founders say with a fucking truckload of salt.
Yeah. And I would just add that he said the top streamers will make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I respect that. I didn't have any delusions of making millions of dollars, but where that put me is like, streaming is going to be a big priority, a big focus for Abstract. They were going to not only bring in big streamers, but also help with distribution, help with awareness, help with discoverability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. I just
I mean, I've had endless amounts of conversations, even when Finn was there. I've had, had a great relationship with him and a lot of people on the team. The team is great. Like I've had calls with Raj. I talked in the AMA. I highlighted this in the AMA a few weeks ago that streamers aren't getting the attention. The upgrade that they just recently did, yeah, it's cool, but they're just basically, saved themselves a lot of money and they're just piggybacking off of Twitch and X.
Can you explain that? Where's the cost savings on how they're doing it this way?
Well, because now somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but they were streaming and running the services themselves. So based on the amount of viewers, I think is the weight of how the streaming was priced in, maybe on what they were doing prior. But now they're just basically grabbing. I can't remember the exact term, but they're basically mirroring your stream, which is not against Twitch policies. We had this debate on MySpace. It's not against any terms of service. And you're just basically mirroring it, just like you use StreamYard. I mean, they're just mirroring it to their platform. So they saved a lot of money there. So, and I appreciate that. It makes our streams look like there's a lot more people watching. That's everything they're doing from the outside is, to me, preparing everything for the eventual TGE. They're trying to create more demand on the chain. They're trying to create more transactions. They're trying to show more viewers on the streams, because I would go in there and the top streamer would have like 40, 50 people viewing them. Then it would quickly just go down to 2 or 3 people watching streams. Then, you'd have the rare occurrence where people had 20 or 30 and whether they were verified or not. But now all the numbers are much bigger. And if anybody knows in the space, if you can go to a VC or some type of investor and you're like, oh, look at all these transactions and look at all this volume and look at all these wallets and all this stuff, like it looks better.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
To me, they're kind of pumping these numbers, and it's not a bad thing because we all want our bags to be worth a lot. But I've suggested making a creator corner in the Discord, a streamer corner. I've requested a tiered badge system for streamers, guys that have been streaming since day one. If you've streamed more than 500 times or 300 times, you get like they have Giga Chat, which that's another fucking conversation. But like have a Giga streamer where they get a big giant XP boost. There's so many things that they can do, and they're just ignoring the creators that are advertising all the games, all the brands, all the stuff on Abstract for free for the most part, unless you have unless you're a big enough creator to get a deal. They're not going to help you with deal flow. I even mentioned that. Like, have the creator corner in there where teams can come in there and reach out and have access to creators to, get creators deals. Have the creator corner in the Discord to where bigger creators can help smaller creators grow on the platform. Like, I've asked for so many fucking things. Nothing's been done. I'm not bearish on Abstract. I continue to stream there every day. Kyle streams with me when he's off work. And I have been, and I won't stop.
Don't be using my government name up here in front of these people like that.
I gotta say, an idiot is a much cooler name than Kyle. No offense, but an idiot is.
Dude, Kyle makes me feel like I just crashed through the drywall with a flat brim monster cap on.
Yeah, I just, I think.
Well, who's the biggest streamer right now in Abstract, and how many viewers do they get?
I have the slightest clue.
It's probably Captain.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's probably this show. If you don't mind, I'll jump in here real quick.
Yeah, do me a favor. Like, I don't mind at all. We're gonna go right to you next. I will say this, 2 things real quick. Is I saw Crypto Grit was trying to get up out here. I think stage is full at the moment, and I feel bad because we have engaged a few times in the chat, and I think he just bounced. I attempted to add Joe, just having some issues. X has been a little finicky, but we'll appreciate everyone's patience. We will get to all the hands. This is a community show. We'll get through everyone. Just need some patience as we have a lot of people are passionate about this topic. So bear with us as we get through the hands. We'll rotate the stage if we need to here in a bit, but appreciate all the patience. Also, in Crypto Grid, I see you back there. bear with me. I will get you up here. I've tried to add you. I don't know if it's a full stage or having some X issues, but we will get you up here. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as well. I've enjoyed the back and forth in the DMs or the comments over the last few days. I will ask this of everyone. I don't want to make this just a bitch session or event session about abstract. I understand we're all passionate. We care. I do think that some of how they've said things, how the Discord mod is gaslit some of the core community members is not great. But I would, just as Jesus gave some potential solutions, some suggestions, some ways forward, how if you're Saigar, if you're on the abstract team, feel free to share whatever you'd like, but I would ask all of you to let's attempt to think critically. So if anyone from the team does listen in, let's give them some actionable advice, not saying they're going to take all our advice or they should take our advice, but just as Cheese is here, I have his suggestions. Special Giga streamer rule with boost percentage boosted, higher XP, tiered badge system for OG and new streamers, more stream tools and chat replies. They may enact none of those. They may enact all those. I think it's often when we have these sort of conversations, it gets a little spicy. We always so pride ourselves here on being able to disagree without being disagreeable. I think most people are on the kind of the same side of the fence on this one, but I would just like to challenge everyone. What would you do if you're in Saigar or Lucas' shoes? Like, how would you make abstract better for those that do care and how I might move this forward? But yeah, an idiot, go right ahead. I'll shift over to your post. I thought you had a good one on this as well. Appreciate you getting up here.
Yeah, and I'm always going to try to balance the conversation, even if I'm going to play devil's advocate. But in this case, I actually kind of changed my tune after I posted that earlier. I see, there's a lot of posts pinned to the top right now that are kind of negative, including my own, being critical. I don't see Saigar's response to all this. Do you mind if I pin that just so people can reference it if they want?
Perfect. Please do. I was going to go find it next. So if you got it, go ahead and throw it up there. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll just pin it. And I mean, he just basically addresses some of this. It's long form. I won't read it, but you guys can read it if you want. Okay, so let me just start with the Abstrud thing. I don't know the guy. I'm not the type that hangs out in Discords, but I will say this. I'm not particularly a big fan of, tightly cropped text screenshots that are out of context.
Fair.
I don't know what exactly the conversation was, but I do know that he was. So, okay, one of the problems that they were having with XP on NFTs is that there was a lot of people that were buying hundreds and hundreds of NFTs from dead collections and getting a ton of XP by buying, NFTs at like $1 or something, right? So look, I'm a big fan of giving people the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume that what he meant by that was those people buying NFTs and holding them, like he said, only for XP, that aren't holding NFTs because they're a fan of the ecosystem itself, because it's a vibrant community or whatever, they believe in the founders, whatever the case may be. I'm going to assume that statement was addressing people who were, trying to game the system by buying hundreds upon hundreds of dead NFTs. That's an assumption too, right? I don't know. Maybe he was being a bit of a dick to people. Maybe, I don't know.
Fair benefit of the doubt. I would say what you say, the words you type, how you say things. I know tone is very tough to convey in text or in Discord, but yeah, fair benefit of the doubt. That change should have been made. Logically, rationally, again, makes sense for the business, but how and when they communicate this stuff, I do think matters. And what I do have Saigar's post pulled up here. Thanks again for pinning that. He quote tweeted because he was getting a lot of flack because they said, since the people have asked, the calculation for holding on-chain assets, tokens and NFTs will not change too much. So I think that's part of, and then they did change a lot, which led to some of this pushback. But go ahead, an idiot. Continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, text is difficult, like you just said. I promise that you could screenshot all kinds of stuff, wild shit that I've said in group chats and out of context, closely cropped. You guys would burn me at the stake. I promise.
Same.
So, benefit of the doubt on that one. And then, look, when it comes to the XP, I was very disappointed yesterday, right? It does feel like, it did initially feel like a middle finger to everybody that was, I mean, look, I think the majority of people on Abstract are there because they're a part of NFT communities and because they're kind of a fan of like the old ethos of Web3, which was a little bit more about community and things like that. And Abstract seems to be the only place where anything like that is happening anymore. There's a few exceptions on ETH mainnet, right? But
I would
there's a
add
lot
Ape
of-
Chain. I think Ape Chain has a very similar, very passionate community that maybe
that's fair.
both are kind of walled off in their own gardens. But yeah, they're like having like I'm not incredibly deep in either. Like I'm not in other side every day, but there's people that are like hundreds of people every single day they're in there, and there's a very passionate community, and like that is a differentiating factor in crypto in a world of insanely competitive blockchains and insanely most of the L2s aren't going to make it. A lot of these L2s, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of these L2s that raised hundreds of millions of dollars would kill to have the passionate community that Abstract and ApeChain has. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And look, I think at the end of the day, it's just it's a matter of they've tried to adjust the sliders of how XP gets delved out to promote the on-chain behavior that they want to see, which is going to change at any given moment. I just think it was an overcorrection, and based on Saigar's response, which was a good response, which I appreciated that. It made me feel better yesterday. I think we'll see some very different outcomes next week. The only other thing I was going to say something about, Joey brought up what Luca had said about having big time, big name streamers and all this. I think sometimes it's sort of like the OpenSea TG thing. When you're focused in on OpenSea's TG not happening when they said it would or whatever, when I'm focused in on the Creeps team and they didn't do what they said they were going to do, when I'm focused in on Luca and they didn't do what they said they were going to do, if you zoom out and you take a broader look at the entire landscape, last year did not go the way that any of our favorite teams thought it was going to go. They all kind of made the mistake of promising things based on what we all thought was going to happen too, right? Because if I didn't buy the same narrative that they were selling, as the broader markets, I wouldn't have held all of this stuff too, right? They thought what I thought, we all thought. That's why they said what they said. That's why I bought what I bought, right? So I just think, it will hit a point where things are looking better. They are approaching an Abstract TG or an OpenSea TG. The markets are doing better. Luca will start to fire up the marketing dollar spend. You probably will see big name streamers coming on to Abstract and streaming, right? Now, granted, again, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt here. But, these are guys that I have chosen to believe in because of the execution that they've shown they're capable of in the past. And I'm going to choose to believe that under the right conditions, they're going to knock it right the fuck out of the park again. So I guess that's all I've got to say is just zoom out a little bit, realize the landscape is the same for everybody. Everybody's kind of guilty of the similar sins as far as all these founders and team leaders go. And, I think it's just a waiting game. And when things are looking better broadly, when, we don't feel like we're on the cusp of World War III or whatever, is going on. I think you will see marketing spend. You'll see big name streamers on Abstract. I got to admit, I was shocked to see your XP, Captain. That does actually imply that there's like zero XP going to streamers, which I think is probably the next thing that they could use some pushback on. But look, Saigar proved yesterday that with the right amount of pushback, they're willing to adjust, right? I said this yesterday in our space. Conversation shapes the culture. We're all having a conversation about this. They're absorbing the feedback. And I think they'll make adjustments as necessary. Anyway, that's all I got.
No, good take. I got one question back to you, and then we'll go Joey, Poppy, and then I will get through the rest of the hands here. Really appreciate everyone's patience as we work through this. Appreciate everyone's interest in adding to the conversation today. These are some of my favorite spaces. Not that we're spicy or being critical of Abstract or their XP system, but rather I love when we get dozens of people on stage sharing their thoughts. It really makes the show from my perspective. Also makes my job a little bit easier. So thank you all. This was the post that an idiot was referencing. I went from 56, 53 XP the week prior down to 32 last week. And again, this is not a me thing. Like I really don't care. Like I'm in gold. I thought I was going to get gold tier 2, something like 10,000 away. I may never get there if it's going to be 32 a week, but I do expect them fully to make some changes. Maybe they say, hey, streamers aren't important and you're not going to get those XP and whatever it is. Fine, we move on. My question for an idiot though, do you have, like you mentioned execution and all that they've done in the past. Do you have concern over, some of the other comments and those screen grabs were that from the Discord mod was that Luka's not really involved anymore. I had sensed this just based on things that he had said publicly and hadn't really heard him talking much about it recently, and mostly been Igloo, Pudgy World, etc. Do you have concern? Let me ask you this, how important is Luka's day-to-day involvement to the execution and the success of Abstract, in your opinion?
I mean, look, I'm not worried about that. I think Lucas is involved as he needs to be. I think he knows how to manage businesses and put people in positions that, are capable of doing the job. I think Saigar does a phenomenal job. I think Luka oversees everything, but overall he's got Saigar taking care of that side of things. I think it's good for Pudgy Penguins that Luka's not dividing his attention more than necessary, right? I think that's good business management, personally.
Agreed. I think some would probably disagree, and they're going to say, "Oh, our faith and hope was in Luka." From my viewpoint, it's more bullish to me that Luka is not in the weeds, not in the day-to-day, but he's running, or he's involved at more of an executive level, not a general manager level, because at that case, that would I think that'd be bad for Abstract and Pudgy Penguin. Like even with AI, even with improved efficiencies, we only have so much time in the day. And when you're responsible for as many things that Igloo and Luka is, you need good generals, you need good leaders, and you need to be able to empower them and trust them to run the day-to-day of the different divisions. Otherwise, everything's going to suffer. So I agree with you. I think, though, we might be in the minority. I think there might be the cult of Luka is real. Like, I think a lot of people were bullish Abstract, not because of Pudgy Penguins or Saigar or Abstract or streaming or their portal. I think they were bullish Abstract because they're bullish Luka. Sorry, I almost said the Freudian slip there. Like I wouldn't have to remember. Like Never Fade Yuga was a rallying cry of all of crypto, and I think that a lot of people probably their feelings towards Abstract are tied to their belief in bullishness in Luka.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm sure that Luka is as involved as he needs to be, and to be honest, I've seen how micromanaging the people underneath you can actually be a huge detractor. So, whatever he's doing, I'm going to just choose to believe that he's doing what's necessary and what's in the best interest of everybody. It's not like he sold Abstract to Saigar and washed his hands of it and rode off into the sunset. I'm sure he's as involved as he feels he needs to be. So yeah, and by the way, one more thing, real quick, I will say that despite what anybody's opinions of like a Discord mod or whatever might be, there are a lot of great people involved in Abstract on the community side. You guys see you got GMB up here. I'm a big fan of this guy. GMB is, by the way, also is not just some like Moon Boy, badged affiliate that's just going to give you positive takes all the time, toxic positivity. GMB has been constructively critical in conversations with me of Abstract. I'm a big fan of this guy, big fan of Marianne, big fan of Saucy. There's a lot of really great people on the community side.
I had Dahlia.
So I big fan of Dahlia. Yeah. Probably one of the actually one of the funniest people I know that's working in a high position for one of these teams. I'm a big fan of Dyla.
Dyla. Excuse me. Dyla. This is if you're new here, it's very on brand for me. It is a sign of affection and endearment if I mispronounce your name. That is, I mean, I mispronounced Joey for like the first 17 times we had him on stage.
I say that all the time, bro, and I get shit on for,
I do Machiavelli and Kaido Dan Reels. I see you out there. We will get you up. I think just full stage at the moment.
I'm done. I'll rotate down so you can bring someone else up. But thanks for having me.
No, great takes this morning. Really appreciate you sharing. I won't repeat the government name, but it's good to make that connection today. And I've enjoyed getting to know you a little better. And I thought great take yesterday. Very, I think, measured response today. And appreciate always adding to the conversation. Let's do this. Let's go.
By the way, I did put on an Abstract PFP because it is like it's meant as constructive criticism. I'm never going to dunk on Abstract and try to be one. That's why I put on an Abstract PFP. It's like I'm being critical, but I'm being critical as part of the fam here. Anyway,
it's very important. Thanks for joining us. I do think that good constructive feedback, being critical when it's necessary is important. Otherwise, they're not going to improve. They're not going to get better. Let's do this. Let's go. I said Joey, then Poppy, and then I do want to get GMB in here, who was just invoked. We will get to everyone else's hands. Greatly appreciate your patience, both those on stage as well as those trying to get up. Joey, GM, thoughts on this, and then Poppy's on deck.
Yeah, I don't want to jump in front of other people because I know like Mike was up here before me. So is that
go ahead and just go ahead and take it, and then we'll go Mike
quick.
after GMB.
Yeah. So I think, I've been in Discord, I'll touch on this quickly, since way before NFTs. Like I started using Discord as a member of like video game communities, and help, mod and build them. And now with Beezy, to your point, running a Discord is really difficult. Dealing with all the different personalities is difficult. Dealing with all the different languages is difficult, because sometimes when people that speak another language try to type in English, it doesn't come across correctly. Like I still get in trouble sometimes in tickets in Beezy because, like someone will ask how to do something, and I'm like, here's a link to our Git book. It's really simple. And they're like, if it was really simple, I wouldn't be asking you. And I have to remember, like, I can't assume that everybody just knows how to do things, right? So I even get in trouble sometimes because I tend to text the way I talk, which is very direct. So it's not easy being a mod, and especially if you're not an English speaking mod or you're dealing with people that don't speak English. In regards to like what's going on with Abstract and many other projects that we see in this space, because there could be a whole list of them. I really do believe that many of these projects just took on too much too fast. They wanted to be, they wanted to be a gaming, then they wanted to be plushies, and then they wanted to launch a token, and then they wanted to launch a chain, and then they wanted to do we've seen so many pivots and for example, and I brought this up in the space before, Cool Cats, they launched a gambling game on Mega ETH that was like the same as Death.Fun on Abstract, right? Like you click little like Minesweeper style, right? Like whoever thought 3 years ago Cool Cats was going to launch a gambling game, right? So like I understand they're trying to stay alive and create revenue, but at some point, and we've said this about Yuga, right? And you've been very and other Yuga holders or ape holders have been very excited about the fact that they're unloading things, right? They sold heavy metal. They've unloaded and they're supposed to be refocused on the club and on the other side. And so from from anybody's perspective that's building in this space, taking the idea of we have to do all of this stuff to be successful versus being really good at one thing can sometimes cause you to be really bad at everything. And maybe that's the case what's going on with Igloo, right? Because they've got Pudgy World, they've got Abstract, they've got the toys, they've got so much going on, and maybe their attention got too fragmented, and that's what's caused all of this to happen. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not in that room, but it does feel like there's just a whole lot going on sometimes from these individual projects.
Yeah.
And I'll stop there.
No, fair. I would just add that easier said than done. Like it's very tough. Crypto's in a tough spot. We were talking OpenSea the other day. While I can understand both sides, double down and just be the best in the world at NFTs, at the same time, there's not a real path for them to only doing NFTs and growing into the size of the company that they are, that they need to be. They need to capture revenue from other sources. They need to add some divisions. And I get why and think it's wise and prudent to do that. I think I would just go back to when you do expand, when you do, think about maybe not the best analogy because they're probably not fishing with pools, but even like a fishing boat that's out there in the ocean, they don't have just one pool in the water. They got a lot. And the best way to catch one is to be taking multiple shots. That said, you got to have.
But they're not fishing for different fish, though, Cap. Right? They're not deep sea fishing.
Well, I would. It's important to have someone good on each fishing pool. You got to have a great team in place when you do expand. And I'm not knocking the team members. I really don't know any of them personally, but I do have to share. We're going to go to Poppy, and then GMB is on deck. I just have to share because Riz Bryant wins the chat today. Joey was talking about the Beezy Discord, and Riz says it's not easy being Beezy. I don't know how you make that a tagline, but I'm kind of shocked that it took us this long to get that one. As a fan of alliterations and good taglines, it's not easy being busy is I think that needs to stick somewhere. I'm not sure how or where, but Joey, I'll leave that one with you.
Yeah, I'll put that one in the bank. And last thing I'll say about expanding though, like as Beezy an example, we get requests all the time for Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yep.
more watches, whatever, right? And would it be easy to add all of those things? Yes. But does it make sense from a business perspective if the market isn't there, the users aren't there, the liquidity isn't there? We're not. So I hear what you're saying about like, you know, the fishing pole example, but at the same time, like if it's it has to be the audience, the consumers, the people have to be there, right? Just doing it for the sake of doing it, I think, and we saw that. And again, we're not going back on Yuga, but Yuga did a whole lot of stuff that they've now pushed off, right?
Yep.
Moonbirds, heavy metal. So I think sometimes you just got to be careful with how often and how willing you are to do more things, which could potentially take you away from your number one revenue generator or focus.
Yep, very fair. And it's very hard. As I get ready to hand it to Poppy here, I'll share 2 books. This is 2 like real pieces of alpha. I know not everyone's a reader. Download Audible, crank it up to 1.5x. These are 2 oldie but goodies that I think should be required reading for all. On the topic of not spreading yourself too thin, a good book to read, a great book to read is Good to Great by Jim Collins. One of the takeaways in there is like focus on what you can be the best in the world at. This is a book I actually may go back and read this. I haven't probably read it. It's maybe been 2 decades, but it was one as I was building businesses. It really was a hit for me in my entrepreneurial career on not chasing every new shiny toy and just doubling down on what I felt we could become the best in the world at. And in my retail career, we focused on just delivering the best customer experience. We wanted to wow every customer. That was our core value number 1. Wow our customers every single time. Like open the doors for them, thank them for their business, make eye contact, shake their hands. A lot of those principles to do that, we picked right out of How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie. There's a new one. There's a revised one in the digital age. The original is still a good read, but some of the stories are a little dated. It probably won't hit with a lot of like the Gen Z. The new one in the digital age is a kind of an update, a revision on the original topic. But it's the things I just said. It's like the importance of remembering and using people's names and shaking hands. Like, so for like, if you got a young Discord mod that you'd like them to understand how to talk to people a little better, this is probably the number 1 book I would recommend. The title doesn't sound the greatest, like Win Friends and Influence People. It's a home run with actual tactical advice that I think would benefit a lot of these. And I know it's not just age thing. It's not just younger kids. I had to learn this stuff too. And I'm not better than anyone else. I've just, I'm twice the age of some of these kids. So I've made a lot of mistakes and then got turned on to success principles and advice like the 2 books I just shared that I think are valuable. Poppy, I'm guessing you've probably read How to Win Friends and Influence People once or twice.
Do you have people waiting to come up? I can go down.
Ooh, yeah, there's a couple.
Okay, I'll go down.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate you jumping up. Poppy GM.
Yeah, and good morning. Good morning. Yes, that book is probably one of the biggest catalysts for me personally back 10 plus years ago. And recently somebody asked me like about mentorship, or there was another founder just asking how I deal with people and all the different personalities in a community and like keeping everybody balanced and respectful. And I was like, look, there's really 2 books. How to Win Friends and Influence People, I would say, is number 1, even if you're not a reader. That book has so many principles about just being a good, trustworthy, reliable person that I think it's kind of a must. And then Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is a great book because it has it's very easy to read. It's like basically 1 thought per page. And it's taught me a lot about how to deal with people and how to you have to keep emotions out of business. It's very important. So anyway, yes, absolutely.
Thanks for that. I have not read Emotional Intelligence 2.0, so I just added it to my wish list. It'll be the next one. I'm debating whether I share the one I read or listened to most recently. I'm not going to right now. I might come back to it. It is not related to today's conversation, although it was a tough read. It was good, but it was a tough read for me. It was it shook me. I'll just say that. Poppy, go ahead. Thanks for the share.
Yeah, you're good. To be honest, I think that's like if that may be the number one book for someone who's trying to be an entrepreneur, business owner, just deal with people better, marriage, relationships, friendships. It's a great Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a great, great, great book. It's very practical. It's an easy read. So look, when at the time I'm in a different position now, obviously, being an owner now for over 6 months, um, a lot of learning, a lot of adjusting. But to be honest, I think a lot of it is about setting proper expectations and proper communication. Um, when I'll get to that in a second because I don't want to. I definitely don't want to compare myself to any other founder, including Luca. So I just want to unpack this from a different perspective to make sure it comes off correctly. Um, at the time when Pengu came, I was probably uh, 150 ETH to about 150 ETH, 100 to 150 ETH in the Pudgy ecosystem with all different types of grails I was holding and trading. And the Pengu drop was exciting. We were leading into it, but after the Pengu drop, there were some people that were pretty close to Luca that were in this specific group. It was pretty much all the Pudgy whales were in the same group, and this one particular person was really pumping us up. You know, Abstract is coming in a month, 2 months. It's going to be a bigger airdrop than Pengu. So when the Pengu claim happened, Pudgy's dropped immediately down to like single digits. I think they were like 5. Some of the blur bids were hitting in the 5s, if I remember. And this individual pretty much, rallied all of us with this information, which it is what it is, right? It's like, bro, do it. We were all fired up, and a lot of us deployed, liquidity, and were excited about Abstract and that airdrop and all this stuff. Am I upset at Abstract or Luca for that? No, absolutely not. Like, this is an individual in the ecosystem that did have relationships and was trusted. Literally dumped on all our heads. The next 2 weeks, dumped like 100 penguins and disappeared from the space. So basically, just rallied us to be his big fat exit liquidity, which perpetually has hurt the Pudgy floor for sure. Anyway, the point being is, number one, I think expectation is really important, right? And communication, clear communication, even if you want to stay vague, even if you don't want to give delivery dates, those things are extremely important as well. And I think, I have friends that build on Abstract. I've bought their projects, and the one thing that has been a common theme in conversations, because I keep relationships with a lot of those founders, is the lack of support. And this is not a yesterday. I honestly saw a lot of that on the timeline yesterday. I wasn't looking for it. It found me with the way someone in the Discord, I forget his name, might even be pinned up top. I'm not sure. But this individual was basically just, putting NFTs down. And then I guess they took XP away and just said like Abstract isn't for NFTs. And I'm like, to me, it doesn't hurt my life, change my life really. I've bought some NFTs. If they go to zero, it's cool. I supported some good people, but like there are some pretty passionate people building NFT projects on Abstract, and their consistent communication to me and the streamers too, like we've talked about it, has just been, a lack of overall support. And I feel like that is an easy fix. If you're gonna have an environment where you're encouraging people to build, I remember when we go back maybe a year, whatever it was, like everybody on Twitter had the green background, right? Like everybody was basically abstracting their PFP. There was a huge rally, and there was pretty big expectations, and things do change, obviously. But at the end of the day, like the one common principle that I think is so important because nobody's perfect. We'll all make mistakes. Is you just have to try to under promise and over deliver. I think the space had this expectation that like the meta, what the meta was at that moment mattered. And I've actually never cared about these stupid metas. Like, I remember there was a period of time where everybody on the timeline was like, it's airdrop season. Like, if your project isn't airdropping you money, what are you doing there? And like, it got really aggressive, but like, I didn't really see any projects get airdrops besides like one. I remember there was one really big one to Pudgy holders, maybe two. Like, did anybody really get life changing airdrops, or was it just this projection from influential people in the space? So I think the problem really ultimately is that you just have to find your North Star, stick to it. Growth and evolution is great, but pivoting to these metas to try to drive volume leaves a lot of people hurt in the end.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
That's-
Appreciate the takes, and I am excited for Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I will say this: you mentioned airdrops, so I got to share my post from this morning because I met victory lap when I'm right. I'll also admit when I'm wrong. Q1 has not been what I anticipated, not from any particular project, but I did think the market was going to be quite a bit different. My post this morning was remember the people who thought TGEs from Abstract, OpenSea, and Mega ETH would jumpstart Q1 2026? Me, I'm those people. And then other people added to it like MetaMask. Like there's some like we had all these lists like December, January, like, oh, these are 40 airdrops coming in 2026. These are 50 TGEs hitting in 2026. I think we've gotten like 2 of them. And for those that are delaying, I don't blame it. Like look at, and this is not taking shots. I haven't even looked at the price, but I saw based on anecdotally some timeline comments that Katana did TGE yesterday and did not go well. So for those that are delaying, seems like a wise decision. GMB, really appreciate your patience. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for passing along my my post. And this isn't like I didn't want to make this about me. It was just it was somewhat shocking, and I appreciate you passing that along to the team. And I don't doubt that the changes will be made, and I'm here for it. But thanks so much for joining us today. Thoughts on all this? Feel free to take it whichever direction you'd like.
Hey, Captain. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. There's a lot to comment on, so I'll try and get through everything. One thing that I think Poppy was saying, also a good book for you guys that haven't read it. I recommend the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. If you guys haven't read that, that one is 10 out of 10. Also Atomic Habits by James Clear is really good as well.
Yep, second that.
Yeah, but so Poppy was saying how the chain is not for NFTs. I would have to disagree. I think Abstrad was, as he said, in a space where you have these NFT communities. They're not aligning with Abstrad's here. They're not aligning with the chain. Like if people are going to exploit XP, it doesn't make sense for them to have XP. So I think that's what he was trying to say. I think people are misconstruing what's like being said on the timeline. And then also Poppy was saying how
GMB, real quick, did you see the Discord comments though from whoever that mod was? I didn't see Saigar's thing, so I have no idea what was on the timeline. I'm just talking about the comments from a Discord mod that I read yesterday.
Couple things, and I think an idiot hit it up well. That often it's hard. Like screenshots can be taken out of context without context. When it's just one comment, can be taken out of context. I see actually Abschud joined us on stage. Excited to get Abschud into the conversation. I appreciate you jumping up here. I would love to hear directly from you. Conversation's been obviously some people feel away. I think my biggest takeaway from all this is the passion for abstract remains, which is a good thing. But let's GMB go ahead and get back in here. Finish your thoughts. I did say Mike was on deck a while ago, has been super patient. So we'll let Mike get in here after GMB. And then I'd like to let Abs Chud cut the line as the topic of some of this conversation this morning. I want to get the mic to him as soon as we can. Not sure if he's got any time constraints this morning. But GMB, go ahead and finish, and then we'll go Mike and then Abs Chud.
Yeah, you guys are all good. And I also want to say I talked with Dyla for very long. We had a very long call yesterday, and I was bringing up some of the things that I want, like all the feedback that I wanted to tell her about streaming, because I saw your post, Captain. I was like, there's no way. Like, you had Adam, the CMO of OpenSea, on your stream, and I'm like, how on earth did this guy get 35 XP in 1 week? And I just thought I put that to Dyla right when I saw it, and yeah, that pretty sure that got sent up. But I agree. Like, that's definitely not. I wouldn't say that makes no sense for you, right? And
just on that one, I do acknowledge that was Tuesday of this week, coincidentally the same day that the 32 XP hit. But I know there's a lag there, so like I will that any XP that would have resulted from that stream with Adam would be next Tuesday if I'm not mistaken. But
I thought I was down bad, bro. You were cooked.
Well, still, like, don't you stream like every day?
Yeah, every day from 8 to 10. However, after the change, there was a few days we missed. So I want to be fair. I want to make sure I'm being completely, like 32 was still shocking, but I get that there was a couple, like normally it's 5 days every week for a couple hours. And last week after the change in how we streamed or to Abstract, missed a day or two, but appreciate you sharing along. And I will, I'll share Dyla's post here as well.
Yeah, even with that, like, even if you missed a couple days, like 32 is, I mean, I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I sent that to the team. Also regarding streaming, I feel like the same way. I know, like, what Luke was saying, and I think we also have to give some grace where the market is completely changed from what we thought. I think we thought Q4 was going to be up only. Q1 would be a lot different than we thought, but I think communication. I in my post, I pretty much said communication is, I think, the one thing that would have changed everything. We wouldn't be having, this conversation if there was, a post by, Saigar or the team. I think that would have been a complete game changer if we were like, oh, like, there's gonna be a huge change in XP, this, that, and that. Like, pretty much what Saigar said in the pin post here. If we got that, a day before, an hour before, I think that would have gave us so much more clarity where people aren't crashing out and people understand, okay, well, you have these NFT projects that are pretty much exploiting, leveraging XP, not really doing anything, and now XP is more aligned with, the Abstract's basically course correcting their XP system, and now it makes more sense. Like,
agreed.
That's fine for the XP side, but the streaming side has nothing to do with Bitcoin being at 60K or any of those type of rewards, and more attention needs to be paid to that, because how else is Abstract going to get attention? It's either negative stuff about XP that overtakes the timeline, or now you have streamers that are upset and have been upset, or just feeling like they're not, that no attention is paid to them. I understand they just did their upgrade, but I think there needs to be a change there, because you want to attract as many streamers as possible. And I've seen so many people, like I said, from day one, that were really good creators that have left because there's no push there by the team or help with growth on the streaming side. And then there's frankly no rewards. It's like, why should I give my audience to Abstract and talk about Abstract games, play these games and do these things, when I could be talking about something else, on another platform, or just streaming on Kick or Twitch or just on X? So,
yeah, Jesus. Even though I have the badge, I'm not going to be like glazing Abstract, but like, the one thing I will say is that I agree with you. Like, I agree with you, to be honest. Like, if someone's to ask me like, oh, why were you going to stream on Abstract? I'd be like, well, the community, like, I'll be honest, the community is insane. Like, I grew my entire community from streaming alone. But there definitely is some things, and I feel like it can only go up from here for streaming, but I completely agree with you, Jesus. I completely agree.
And I love Abstract. We talk about, like I said, in my spaces, I guarantee has fallen off by 50-60% because we talk about Abstract so much. My one co-host doesn't even engage for 85% of the space because he doesn't like Abstract, but he still shows up and listens to us talk about fucking everything on Abstract. So I'm still an advocate. I still support it. Like, the team is great. So yeah, I'm sure there's some people in here that's gonna clip some shit, and Captain, get ready to get famous. You're gonna have clips all day long, probably, from this. So,
well, I'll just double down on context is important. Context matters. And whether it's a screen grab or a clip, often it can be out of context, and fully understand that. But yeah, clip away. Feel free to clip away and share that on the timeline. Appreciate everyone's patience once again. We will get to all these hands. As always, open stage here on Coffee with Captain. If you're new, if you just came in for this conversation, we do go live every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Typically, the first hour of the show is news of the day, trending topics. Then often we're fortunate to have a special guest around the 9 o'clock hour. Today's, we're just gonna. I've got a few other things. They're kind of evergreen. So if we don't get into the other topics today, we can put them to tomorrow and have a catch-all Friday. But enjoying this conversation, and clearly a lot of passionate individuals want to get in on it as well. Mike, you've been on ice probably for about an hour now, so I want to get you in here. Always some great takes, some sage advice. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. And then we got Abs Chud. We're going to let cut the line and hear directly from Abs Chud. But Mike, go ahead. GM, appreciate you joining us.
Well, good morning. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to speak on the perspective of being a mod. I was a paid mod for over a year in a Discord for a brand new project that was a degen project specifically. And I'm not a degen, so to speak. I guess by default I could be in here. So, perspectives were different between me and other people. And there's so much to say. The things that have been brought up so far, like communication, is absolutely critical. The problem that we had was the team, the founders, were undoxed publicly, and they wouldn't even tell us who they are. So there were 4 of us that were the constant ones and running the whole Discord essentially as mods. And people would come in and, I do remember specifically sometimes when people would come in and say, well, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. And I would just respond by saying, okay, it sounds like you know more than I do. And I want to learn things. So tell me, have you seen this work before? And, what can I tell them to possibly help them do this if they want to, I would treat things like that because you have to meet people where they are. One thing about your show, which I love too, is that you guys always met people where they are and you never talk down to anybody. And I really appreciate that too, because you get more out of people that way. Emotional intelligence is critical. I really appreciate the book that Poppy recommended. I think raising kids helped me a lot too, because you allow them to have emotions and just say it's okay to be emotional, and everybody is allowed to have their emotions. They can think the way they want. Having a discussion about something is great, which is where the communication comes in. I feel like I'm rambling a lot here, but there's so many different topics to touch on. And one of the problems that we had with the project that I was the mod in is that eventually it got to the point where it just wasn't sustainable for us to keep doing this without the information that we needed to pass along to the community. And I think it's incumbent on founders to be able to empower people to have the knowledge to actually answer the questions. Or if a question comes to the founders from the mods, which came from the community, they need to get back to people in a shorter time period than a week, which is something that we had. It can be very frustrating when somebody comes in and starts criticizing or starts being personal or something like that, but you have to breathe for a minute before you respond and just say, okay, like Joey said, maybe it's not their first language. That's a miscommunication that could happen. Maybe they're upset because, they dropped to 35. That's a communication that can happen as long as you take a step back and say, okay, here's the changes. I'm sorry we didn't communicate it better. This is what we were thinking, and this is why we did what we did. And I'm sure if you had that information, it either would have helped you adjust beforehand, or it would have at least said, okay, I understand now. Now I can adjust moving forward and get my my stuff back, or get better at what I'm doing in your world so that I earn more. It comes down to communication. But I always treated everybody as people who had opinions and emotions, and they were allowed to have them. And I think that's really important. I guess that's the main point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And having those, sharing those opinions, taking the opinions. Now, with that being said, not all opinions, not all feedback should be enacted upon or is valuable. And at the end of the day, they are running a business. And
Yes,
we'll get Abs in here next. I just say that, like, I understand the logic and rationale behind my read is there is a business shift from NFTs and maybe streaming, the community centric approach, to shifting hard into AI agents. I've not been in any of these discords, but I've seen, this is from Marcelo here. The Claw Council is popping, dozens of Chads in the Abstract Chain Discord tapped in to learn more about AI agents. And I get that. It makes sense, both from it's not a meta. It's here. It's not gone anywhere. I think it was a Abschud post. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Abschud, but I think he said 1% of the AI industry is more than all of the NFT and meme coin industry combined. And I agree. Like, it's massive, and it's only going to get bigger from here. So I fully get that. I think where I net out is a lot of these being able to make that transition while still keeping the support of the early supporters, the brand ambassadors, those that were deep in abstract NFTs or abstract meme coins. I think there's really value in bringing that group of people with you on the new journey. I think it's valuable. I think I said it earlier, there's a lot of chains that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars, far more than Abstract or Ape Chain or any of these quote unquote community-based chains that would love to have, that would do anything to get the community, the diehard community that exists in the abstract streets. And I think that is a real key differentiator. It's a real value add for anything they want to attempt to build. And so I get it all. I also understand how challenging it can be, and things can be taken out of context. All that said, Abstrud, really appreciate you joining us today. I'm not sure how much of the conversation you caught, but feel free to take it whichever direction you'd like. I respect for joining us and taking, the title is, I don't want to say it's clickbaity or engagement baity. I feel the sentiment of the timeline over the last 24, 48 hours. And I also said that much respect, I would not want to be a Discord mod. I don't know if there's a number. If so, it's a very big number, because maybe one of the most challenging, underappreciated roles in all of crypto. They take on a lot of the heat that the interns, the shit posters on the timeline, the CT leads get a lot of love, and all this is a great role. I think the Discord mod is equally, if not more important, and doesn't get a lot of the credit, or only gets talked about when things go sideways, to which it's often nothing that the Discord mod had a say in the decision that was made, but yet deals with the blowback from time to time. So Abchud, GM, thanks for joining us. Good to connect.
GM, thank you for having me on. So can you guys hear me okay? All good? Perfect, thank you. And I wanted to give a shout out to GMB first, because GMB, along with some of our other ecosystem affiliates, we're constantly in touch with them, and we get this feedback all the time. And I just want to say I appreciate you all for being so passionate about abstract. Now, obviously, the topic of discussion today, I've been tuned in for about 30 minutes now, and of course the last 2 days especially. Now, with sort of what happened this week, we had a massive change in sort of the way people interacted with abstract because of the NFT changes. And then of course there was the infamous screenshot going around. So I would love to sort of just talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, please do.
Now, with the screenshot, I guess I'll start with the screenshot. So with the screenshot, it's I'm probably one of the people that is in the abstract Discord the most. I can probably only name 2 or 3 other people that are in there more than me. Saucy being one of them, and then a couple of community members that I'd rather not name drop right now. But we have a lot of active people in the Discord, and there's this sort of unspoken rule about banter and shit posting that goes on in there. And ultimately what happened on that fateful day was we had a lot of people come in that and we have this data, people that hadn't been in the Discord in like a year or like 6 months, and I wasn't able to identify that quick enough. And so going from banter mode, which is like every day, to empathetic mode when there's like a real problem is a really tough challenge. And especially, I've heard the term Discord mod thrown around. My role is it's a lot of different directions. Well, I'll tell you this, I'm the Discord admin, not the mod, but definitely I do a bunch of different stuff as well. So a lot of the portal updates that everyone has seen over the last few months that people mostly enjoyed. I've been helping the Eng team spearhead that to provide a better experience for the community. Some of the streaming updates, like everyone has mentioned, there has been a little bit of a business shift. I've been helping, GMB and some of our other streamers are beta testing that, so it's far more than a Discord mod role. And I think the mistake with not just the screenshot, but the way I approached it is, 100 people popped in all at once, and I didn't have enough context to be empathetic right away. So I, apologize for that on my end, and I will strive to be better in that regard. Now, we do have a level of banter in the abstract Discord on a day-to-day basis where people talk to each other, and it's a really close-knit community. And when you have people that haven't been there for a really long time, it just like it's a different dynamic, and we need to be able to identify when that's the case. If you guys are familiar, after 6 months after mainnet launched, we had a sidelined activation, which is basically we gave out Elite Chad to a bunch of top NFT communities, Bored Apes, Penguin, Suzuki, all that. We had like 20 communities in the mix. And we noticed like a bunch of people were not really using their AGWs. They got their Pengu airdrop, which not an abstract thing, by the way. It was just offered to abstract Elite Chads, and then they ended up never connecting their X to their AGW. And so we told everyone like, hey, you're sidelined. Now's your time to come back. And this is the way we've communicated, and it's been a huge net positive. But obviously, we all know the market has shifted since then, and people are down bad across crypto. And so, in regards to the communication style, like what I want to say is this: like, we know people are not making money in crypto right now, and gambling isn't really fun if you've already lost your money. There hasn't really been any successful TGEs for a while, right? And one thing our community member said is that XP is the only thing putting a smile on people's faces week to week. And that's a really like tough position for us to be in, right? Because you have the weight of the whole world on your shoulders, where people are coming in every week and they're super happy with XP. I would urge you guys to uh, check the X Radar stats. We're up there above every other chain besides Solana and BNB chain. So it's like people are tuning in more than any other chain, and there's this expectation that people are always going to be happy. And for us on the incentives engineering side, on every side, we have to balance that to make sure that it aligns with both the community and the company objectives. And it's almost an impossible task. And so when people come in hot to the Discord saying whoever designed this should be fired or whatever they're saying, it's very hard because you know who designed it, you know who's on the team that did that. And it's very hard to not like stand up for your teammate and simultaneously also be empathetic. So that's sort of my piece on the Discord stuff. Happy to discuss any other things that you guys would like to discuss.
I really appreciate you sharing. I am glad you joined us today. I get it. In what you said, it's like not only is it if you just join in the Discord and you're not there every day and you don't understand the dynamic and the back and forth, especially if you just see one screenshot taken out, posted on X, it absolutely can be taken out of context. And I'm sure there's things I've said in closed group chats or Discords that was just in good fun, but if you see it on a timeline out of context, it looks like a really bad take or mean or lacks empathy. And especially when people are taking shots at your work or your teammates' work, like, yeah, that all it hurts, it stings and changes while the business is evolving. I mean, to your point, you mentioned there hasn't really been a great TG for a while. I fully agree. I said earlier, like the teams that have, whether from OpenSea to Magic ETH or Magic Mega ETH to Abstract and MetaMask and all. Like Katana launched yesterday. They're they're down 25% since launch, and they're trading at a $23 million market cap. Not great. Again, not taking shots at Katana. That you're going to see a very similar chart. Any team that TGs into this environment, it's not great, and it's not even just a crypto thing. It's you got Kraken is delaying their IPO. It's across the board. It's just not a good market to be launching a token to going to IPO. It's yes, like it's tough to time a market perfectly, but it's not that hard to time really poor market conditions. And right now it's mostly poor market conditions. It would be, I think, either out of touch or overly arrogant to launch into this market. And if people really want to see the success of the brand, of the protocol long term, you should give some grace and understand that. I think part of what we were saying earlier is oftentimes not just what is communicated, how it's communicated, when it's communicated, and kind of getting in front of some of like the changes or what might lead to blowback. Getting in front of it can sometimes help soften the blow a little bit, as opposed to having to put out fires and deal with backlash after the fact where people are kind of shocked. But I think the one question that just popped up, and I understand if you can't answer this, I appreciate that Abstract XP is somewhat opaque and it's not fully transparent. It is variable and a moving target. Like, you don't want people solely doing things just to farm. I get that. You don't want people that are buying, someone earlier said, buying $1 NFTs and sitting on a bunch of them and just like that. That's doing the real users, the real ambassadors, an injustice if people are gaming the system. So I fully understand that. J81 in the Abstract chat does ask, and if you can't answer this directly or even directionally, fully understand, but he asks, what are the best activities to earn XP based on time or money spent? Is there any directional advice that you can say, hey, this is important to Abstract, this is where we're heading, and while there's no promises or guarantees, this might be something to spend. If you're wanting to support Abstract and by result earn some XP, this might be something worth checking out. Are you able to answer that in any way, shape, or form, Abshad?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I've worked with the ecosystem team, and shout out to the ecosystem team, by the way. They have like one of the hardest jobs on this planet, right? Especially with the headwinds of building in crypto in the last year, and talking to all these apps and NFTs and coins as well. Now, I can't recommend one thing, and I'll tell you why. Because if I go on here and tell people this activity will be the best XP for you, it's going to lead to a lot of behavior that's in the direction of, I'm going to do this one thing and this one thing only for XP. And that's not the direction that we've taken it for a long time. And I'll expand a little bit. We've expanded sort of the way that we see the abstract profile system to be a lot more all encompassing than just earning XP. So you've seen, if you've been tuned into the abstract community, you've seen that we've had things like perks and certain communities airdropping certain stuff to certain tier holders or elite chads or people with a certain badge. So, like, if you have gold tier and this certain badge, a certain project might want to give you a perk in their game that gives you a head start, or like an airdrop in their token, their eco token. And so when if I were to recommend like one specific activity, do this for XP, what would then happen is, like, you'd have an influx of people that would be sort of expressing all of their crypto cynicism to that project. So it wouldn't be a net positive for me to like tell people, yeah, go play this for XP. What I would recommend is sticking by the principle that is, right now we are focused on bringing more on-chain activity to the chain. And what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you this. What used to be crypto Twitter is a lot smaller than it was. We're tracking all these metrics, and especially post 1010, I'm sure you guys remember what happened on 1010. So what happened then was more or less that a lot of crypto native capital evaporated, right? Like, you've seen all these funds getting shut down, you've seen all this stuff happening, and that really changed the landscape of crypto, investing, trading, whatever you want to call it. It changed the complete market structure. And so while before things like Barachain, no shade to any of these teams, by the way, but like even like Katana, um, you mentioned Katana as an example. It's backed by Polygon, right? And Polygon is one of the fastest growing chains in the world with Polymarket building on them. And it's like if you only have this CT audience where things like Barachain used to be worth a ton of money, and once again, no shade on Barachain, because of solely the community aspect. After 1010, the whole market structure changed to where like now you need to be some sort of like critical infrastructure for building. And you're seeing this with Hyperliquid, where why is Hyperliquid worth what it is? Because they've onboarded the S&P 500 onto their actual chain, because they've onboarded all of these massive institutional cases onto their chain. And so what we would like to see on the crypto native side, and this is answering the XP question, is we would like to see people vibe coding new apps. We'd like to see people participating in things that bring innovative use cases on chain. And there are a ton of things you can do in this direction. But the reason why we had to, sort of make those like NFT changes is because we had the data, and you guys saw the tweet a month ago. It was like, we're not going to make changes to NFTs. But the incentives team looked into it, and it's like, we got like a 3,000 word report from like various people, especially the Chinese community, which you do not see on CT as much, the Chinese and the Korean communities. We have a massive Chinese and Korean community. They see things a lot differently than some of us do on CT. And it's like, well, hey guys, look, we found that some people are holding these $2 NFTs that, might have been building something at one point, but are no longer. And so it's like, does that help us bring innovative new use cases on chain, to which you could extrapolate that in a year or two from now, we also have the, S&P 500 on our chain. And so that's really the direction that we're going in. Is the activity that we're promoting going to lead to more use cases coming on chain, such that eventually we will also have these like massive institutional enterprise use cases that are on chain? And we think that the crypto native community can play a massive role and a massive innovation role, both in terms of using and building, in helping us accomplish that. So that's sort of, I've touched a little bit on the communication issues, which I will own fully. And, Saigar has seen the sentiment as well. And he's also, the whole team is aligned, right? And so we will own that fully. I do apologize for that. Now, on the direction side, I think I'm being pretty clear without being explicit on what apps to use, or like what to build or whatever. I think that answers it.
It does. Can I ask, where does streaming fall into this? How at one point it seemed to be a big focus. I mentioned I'm biased, and I will say, while I was a little disappointed to only see 32 XP this past week, I'm forever grateful for abstract streaming because it got us streaming. Previously, we were just an audio X show for, I don't know, 800, 900 shows, and it was abstract. And quite frankly, Luca's push and his statement on the importance and prioritization of streaming. And I still believe it is a key differentiating factor for a blockchain to have this streaming platform and the portal at large. If it wasn't for abstract, we may still not be on video. And that's opened up so many from, obviously we stream on X, we stream on YouTube. And I don't know if we ever get here if it wasn't for that push from abstract and that prioritization. So for that, I'm grateful. If I ever get not another single XP, and if I get 0 from TGE, I'll still remain grateful for the shove and the the motivation to turn on the video. And I also am very grateful it's connected us with new people. People like Hans, who's over there, and Be Epic. And while they may have tuned into the show before, I'm not sure, but now they're not only do they tune in, that I've been able to build some friendships, and very grateful for the generous tips over there. Is it life-changing money? No, but the intent, it matters more than any dollar amount. The fact that they're taking their Pingu or their ABX and sharing, like, it's greatly appreciated. It goes a long way, and in that sign of support, it's much more than the dollars, if that makes any sense at all. But I guess that would be my question: is where does streaming fit in the future in terms of is it a priority? I know there was some changes recently. I understand maybe why some of those changes, but can you speak to the just specifically streaming in terms of abstract, and not even asking for like a direct XP, but maybe like is it important? Is there is there a world where streaming just doesn't become a thing anymore? It's just too expensive, doesn't make sense. The business is going a different direction, or is it still an important part of abstract for the the go forward?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. Thank you. So, in regards to streaming, I'll give you guys some more context. Myself and our team on the community side, we started the customer support department. We have processed like 30,000 tickets over the last year, something like that, an average of like 100 plus a day on some days, and like a lot of those are about streaming. We had the previous provider before, Mux, and I don't want to like throw them under the bus because they were pleasant to work with, but it had like 98% uptime, which it might seem like, oh, 98% is good, but no, these things have to be basically close to 100. You almost never hear of Twitch going down or whatever, or X going down, and so we couldn't compete with that system, like just being real. It's just if you don't have 100% uptime, and the things that were needed to make 100% uptime happen were almost impossible on a scale like ours. You need mega scale to accomplish that. So like we after we saw like the biggest complaints about the biggest complaints being, one, the uptime, two, the connectivity, three, the echo chamber effect, where you have like, because crypto obviously shrank in the last year, you have less creators and the same amount or even less listeners, right? So we had to like pivot to that, and I say pivot strongly here because pivot is like, we want people to grow their audience, right? We want them to get recognized in the X algorithm. We want them to get recognized in the Twitch algorithm. And although crypto isn't necessarily like what these platforms are focused on, because we know gamers don't exactly like crypto, and X is explicitly cracking down on crypto, it's still a way bigger audience than what the abstract portal can get you. So that was like the first direction of streaming. And the second one is this: it's like on a chain level, now not on a portal product level, but on a chain level, it's a lot better for us to be critical infrastructure for streamers, like basically that financialized layer on top of streaming. When any streamer on any platform can connect their streaming platform to AGW, whether it be Twitch or X or Kick or any of that, and they would be able to then get tipped in crypto in any meme coin, which, by the way, we are exploring, like more or less connecting abstract with the rest of the chains that everyone knows and loves. So you'd be able to tip in like any meme coin from any chain, and by doing that, it's like you're basically opening up the gates for all these people to come and use abstract as a financialized layer on top of streaming, which allows you to then get your foot in the door and onboard these very large creators. Like, Kai Cenat would never like use abstract unless he can keep his existing infrastructure, right? Like he wouldn't switch over, but he would gladly add it if it was a value add. And so that's kind of how we shifted to thinking about streaming. Now, how does it apply to existing streamers? I think probably we might have overcorrected a little bit on the XP front. And by the way, if you got 32 XP, you should make a ticket. Like, it's very possible that something went wrong. And I do apologize if that is the case. Our customer support team can help you out there. But in regards to XP, like, it streaming has always been like one of the top things that we've encouraged on the platform, but the issue was like it just wasn't immediately obvious how it benefited the network in terms of like bringing more use cases on chain, right? And so when you look at it holistically, it's like, okay, it might not bring new use cases on chain, but it brings new people on chain, and those people bring use cases on chain. So it actually does make sense to reward streamers. And where we are now is like basically in the adjustment period. So what I would ask is for you guys to just continue to, pay attention to us for the next few weeks as we sort of readjust these things according to Saigar's post yesterday. Like readjust these things in terms of NFTs and streamers and all this stuff. because it's important to not ignore the second order effects, right? Like obviously an app that's building on chain and has like a, has spent a year building and has like some totally crazy new mechanics, something like an OCH or like a Moody Madness or a Gigaverse, and a ton of others. Like they've spent a lot of time building for this specific purpose. Yeah, they should be given XP. Now, second order effects are really important too, because streamers have spent a long time building an audience and they bring people onto the chain and they keep people excited. So I do agree with you. We are reevaluating all this stuff and it is dynamic. So thank you very much for your comments on like being passionate about streaming and NFTs and all this stuff, because like we truly are thinking of like how do first order effects impact our chain and our users? How do second order effects impact our chain and our users? Sometimes we over index on one, under index on the other, and we'll always strive to get better at it.
Awesome. No, my pleasure. I truly appreciate you joining us today and taking this stuff head on. And it makes sense. Like it does. I feel a lot better now about abstract streaming than I did an hour and 51 minutes ago, without a doubt. I do have one quick question for you, and then I want to hand it to Crypto Grit next, who's got a question. Crypto Grit, a elite chat over there and a streamer himself. My quick question for you though, Abs Chat, is it on the roadmap at all where would streamers ever be able to tip the chat, ever be able to tip listeners? Can I reverse tip? Can I, like I gave B Epic a shout out and Hans. I'd love to return the favor. By the way, True Crypto King coming over the top with a big 500 Pingu tip over there. Is that something that I might be able to do it someday? Is that on the roadmap? Has it been discussed at all?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. We are actually like internally we have looked at a bunch of different things to think about. So, and I will just give these ideas to you guys right now. If anyone wants to vibe code this stuff, like feel free, we will rally behind it. So, with the way we have streaming set up now, and the reason why it's able to work so well, we have this like internal database, basically more or less, of like, hey, this is your AGW, and this is your X, and this is your Twitch. So that connection is very easily made, right? And that also means that you can enable things to be peer to peer. So like when I tip you, or anybody in the audience tips you, it's purely peer to peer. It goes directly from their wallet to your wallet. It never touches Abstract, right? And we don't take a cut. And there's also a reason for that, which I will get into very shortly. So the reason why we're going and have gone in this direction is because money transmission laws are extremely complex. Okay. And you need to get licenses in practically every jurisdiction that you're in. And when you introduce a smart contract into the mix of like, well, the money goes here and then it goes to this person and then it goes to that person, it's like you add a custodial layer. And I get it in crypto and Web3. I've been in this space for almost 10 years. Like technically, if it's a smart contract, it's non-custodial. But to the legal system, the way boomers do things, it is technically custodial. And so there's a bunch of features that are limited by that because you need, a license in whatever state and whatever country and whatever. And on the crypto native side, like all these features are super exciting, but I can't promise that that's something that we'd be able to deliver without significant lift on our end. Now, if it's like on a smaller scale, like that is something which, I've explored vibe coding extensively. I can tell you that is something you can create in an hour and put on top of an abstract stream with something like Chrome extension or something along those lines. And so I would really encourage you guys to, do some R&D, DYOR on how that can be done. And if that's something that's like a huge net positive and everyone loves, we'd be happy to rally behind it. We are huge fans of these things. Now, the way we've opted to do things, which is, the long-term way, and as you guys know, most of the abstract team is US based and the corporate structure is US based and all that stuff. Like it does mean that we can't operate the same way that some of these other chains have operated by building out of other jurisdictions and other entities. So that's sort of how I'll answer that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome and fitting. Glad I asked because to exactly what you said, DGTL Trophies in the chat says I did that. Build a portal. Streamers can tip in the chat. It's a Chrome extension. So Awesome. DGTL just gave you a follow, and I will connect with you after the show. And hey, maybe tomorrow, with any luck, we'll be able to give some of this love back. Now we've created a tipping war between B Epic and True Crypto King over there. They keep coming over the top. I salute you both. Appreciate it. I appreciate your time to do as well, Abshad. We're probably going to run a little long. Everyone on stage, we will get through all the hands. I know some of you probably have questions for Abshad.
I could do one more question, but I do have a hard out in 5 minutes.
Okay, so let me do this. I've got a question in the chat from Joxy Coxy, and then I'm going to hand it right to Crypto Grit because I think his question is similar in nature. And this, understand this might be a challenging one. You may not know the answer as well, but I did say I would ask, and then Crypto Grit will hand it right to you. Joxy Coxy asks, did you get permission from Twitch to shadow viewership? And then if you want to answer that, or either if you can, and then Crypto Grit, go ahead and get in here because I think yours is similar in nature.
Yeah. So with Twitch integration, like it's just basically for the technically minded, it's basically just an iframe. So it's embedding the stream from your Twitch onto the Abstract portal. So it's like using their more or less like official iframing tool.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we talked about that in MySpace with Joxy, and it's not against Twitch terms of service.
Awesome. Crypto Grit, I'm not sure if that answers your question entirely. If so, great. If not, feel free to expand on it and take it wherever you'd like. You've got the last question for Abshad before he's got to get out of here, but appreciate your patience. You've been here maybe almost the full 2 hours with your hand up, so I hope your arm's not tired. But GM, great to connect.
GM, thanks for having me. Yeah, like my question goes in a similar direction because I know I was like trying to get some games listed on Twitch, and what I realized is they're heavily against everything that is crypto related. So I'm not sure, like if this goes like bigger, will they keep following like embedding the videos on the streams on Abstract and like doing donations? Because it actually directly cuts their potential revenue, right? Because people can donate on Twitch, just not in crypto. So that's pretty much the question. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising that. I actually don't think that's an issue at all, and I'll give you some reasons why. Because if you look at it through that frame of mind, then Abstract more or less just becomes, through Twitch's frame of mind, then Abstract just becomes another sort of Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon. It just becomes another source that people can, send their audience to, and it doesn't necessarily compete with Twitch because it's totally something that they don't offer, and like no one really has problems with taking donations from any of these platforms, so I don't see why it'd be any different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, I haven't thought in the direction. I just know in the past that, for example, Kik is very open for anything. Twitch is like super closed, and in order to get approved for multiple games, we kind of had to remove everything that mentions crypto, everything that mentions wagering, and stuff like that. So yeah, just wanted to say that. I just want to go like regarding the previous conversation, right? You have Adam from OpenSea. I think you mentioned at one point that like it's not good market conditions, and like when you had Adam, he mentioned the like trading volume and this stuff, and it's kind of obvious when you go to the OpenSea and when you see like during the wave, the volume is much higher than when there is no waves at the moment. You can also see that some collections that are traded is kind of insane. Chinsanity also did the podcast with Brian, and in the end of the podcast, Brian also implied like it's not good market conditions for a lot of stuff. So I think like Abstract is doing a great job at like keeping the mindshare high and the traction, and a lot of these things, as you said at the start of this space, like a lot of other chains would like love to have community like Abstract has, right? So I think they're doing great jobs in terms of that, right? Like in terms of XP, I think like in every scenario, like people won't be satisfied. Either like people will be like, oh, you value people that were there early, but you don't value people that are here now. Either it will be like it's always some problem and people will never be happy. I just feel it's like that. And I feel I agree, for example, with many things that Jesus said. I just think it's a problem that there's a lot of manual stuff that has to be done, right? It's already like manual thing to promote people. It's like manual thing like to approve streamers, then it's manual thing and adds one more complexity. And that makes people to feel, one of the largest creators on Abstract. When I spoke with him, he told me, like it took him like 6 months to get like promoted to graduated elite chat, then 1 month to get giga chat, and like that and that oscillates for different people, and some people will always feel like, oh, it's kind of unfair for me, right? And like nobody will say it's unfair you promoted me too fast, but people will always be like, oh, it took you so long to promote me or do anything. So I'm not sure, like it requires a lot of manpower to do this stuff, and I believe this is like one of the biggest thing. One of the questions that didn't went through in the last abstract like Q&A that I wanted to ask,
I really have to hop. Do you mind if I just answer what you've said so far?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let me answer that rapid fire because I really do have to hop. So first of all, with the manual stuff, yeah, I do agree. We have historically done things manually, but as of 6 months ago, we started. So this is a little bit of alpha for anyone that wants to become elite Chad. We actually now have a lot of like automated tools that will track things like your on-chain activity. So that means things like how much XP you get per week, how many transactions. We have X tools, we have Discord tools. So a lot of the decisions that we make in that regard are like automated in some sense now. We do a sanity check first before, like in case, so that somebody, for example with the NFT stuff, like if somebody that had like 300 $1 NFTs and somehow is getting a ton of XP, like that person would not get promoted. But like that stuff is largely not nearly as manual as it used to be. Now with the manual stuff, that's Giga Chad. Giga Chad is very sensitive because everyone believes that they should be a Giga Chad. Uh, but we have 800,000 like users that are constantly coming in, and there's about 200 Giga Chads, and we're very aware that like people are connected to each other, right? So it's like somebody doesn't show up and we derank somebody, like their friends will be like, oh, you shouldn't have deranked this guy, because it's like, well, dude, look at his profile, look at his Discord, look at his X, hasn't been on Abstract in 3 months, 6 months. And so it's very sensitive, and it's like, I don't want to like sound like a complainer, but it'll never make everyone happy. We try our best. We use a lot of heuristics, and so for the last like 5 to 6 months, we've tried to, whenever we promote new people, we also get rid of anyone that's inactive. And we know that that's probably the best way to do it. It's like we want to bring more people in, but we also can't allow people that have either taken it for granted, or they have personal stuff. If they've chosen to move on to away from crypto or whatever, that's their choice. We will never hate on somebody for that, and they can always earn it back. And so I hope that answers most of it. I'm already late, so I do have to hop. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I do apologize for the
Thanks.
miscommunication and the more or less being in banter mode and not in empathetic mode. So thank you for your time.
Hey, really appreciate you joining us. Great respect, and again, good to connect today. Thanks so much for taking this stuff head on, and you can blame me for the tardiness to the meeting, but hope to connect again soon. Welcome anytime. You guys want to go do a deeper dive, more of a formal scheduled interview? Let me know. Happy to make that set that up as well. The chat obviously enjoyed and appreciated your time today as well. So thanks again, and we'll talk soon. Next, I want to go to Bosu Kev, one of the builders on Abstract. One of the leading NFT projects over there. Kev, I really appreciate your patience. Sorry we didn't get you in here earlier. You probably had some questions for Chud, but feel free to take it whichever direction you like. And as always, appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, no worries. What's up, guys? Nice to see y'all. Yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's very difficult, the situation they're in with XP. It's like the classic monkey story, that if you give a monkey 3 apples for many months and then take the apple away, they're gonna get pissed at you. I think it's a really difficult thing to balance out, but I wanted to kind of stick up for all the building NFT founders and make sure that that we get this heard, because even though maybe on-chain activity, what can be very transactional. I think the perspective from a founder building every day, the brand on Abstract. Like there's a lot of things that we're actually doing in order to promote Abstract. Like I personally have a lot of conversations with collectors that usually collect on ETH, and then I jump on a call with them, and then I always have to pitch them two things. I pitch them Final Basu, and I have to also convince them on Abstract. But this is value that's going to Abstract that I think is generally not being seen. And so yeah, I'm happy he came on stage and he I gave some comments on the messages, because when I first wrote it as well, like personally, I felt like a shift that has happened over these last months. The first couple of months, they were very like promoting NFTs. There was a lot of support as well from Luca directly, and it kind of faded away over time. And then like NFTs in a way became less important. And yeah, I'm happy that he definitely clarified that. But I think there's so much that we're doing as a brand to actually promote Abstract like consistently towards people, right? And so I think it's a lot of culture. All of our holders, just by wearing their PFP, Abstract is in their minds every single day. And I think that alone holds a lot of brand value to Abstract.
Yep.
That I definitely want to make sure that the teams see that, right? Because it's not transactional, but it's mind share. It's people actively pushing. And so I'd love to promote that culture more together, right? All the Abstract NFT projects standing together to push that, because I think it's something that can be missed really fast if you only look at the actual on-chain data.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that's my biggest hope for. Candidly, while biasly, I'd love them to overcorrect on streamers and give us all tons of XP. Sure, I mean I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I'd love more XP just for streaming. However, I also think that's important for the chain for similar reasons you just mentioned. We're talking about Abstract. There, every day whether someone goes to the Abstract chat or not. One of the first comments in this space every day that hundreds, if not thousands of people see is, here's the Abstract chat. Here's the link to the Abstract chat. There's no other chains I'm doing that for. And again, this isn't about me. There's hundreds of me. There's a lot of other streamers. I think that adds value. In your case, same with the NFT front. It's when I see a Bosu, I think Abstract. When I see a Bearish, I think Abstract. Like you're exactly right. And I also can acknowledge how, like, what they're saying at face value, the changes of there were people abusing the NFT XP because they were going and buying a bunch of dead projects for $1. I can see how that is actually hurting projects like yourself that are still active, still building. Gigaverse, OCH Genesis, Bearish, Final Bosu, Royu. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Like these are valuable NFT collections, valuable communities to the Abstract chain. Fugs, is another one that I think Abstract. I don't think they want to lose those communities. I think it would be it would hurt Abstract if all those communities I just rattled off decide to go to another chain. Zeet, big fan of. I don't think they want to lose those communities. So finding a way to and how you measure this, I don't know. It's not just holding an NFT. I get it's not just holding an NFT because that would be abused, and that could, you're gonna have people go buy a bunch of, I don't know. I'm just picking it purely off floor price. I know nothing about this, but you'd have a bunch of people go buy a bunch of Abstract hot dogs and sit on 100 of those. And I don't know the project, so maybe it's thriving, but let's just say it's a dead project. I probably shouldn't name any names. It's actually trending, so bad choice. You gotta have to go buy a bunch of Abstract Universe and dead project. Again, I don't know if it's dead, but let's assume it's a dead project and they're sitting on thousands of those and they're earning far more XP than people who are actually active and rocking a Final Bosu or rocking a Bearish and by extension supporting the Abstract chain. So do you have any ideas, Kev, how they might identify or differentiate the active NFT communities, the real communities, as opposed to someone who's just trying to game the XP system?
Yeah, I think definitely staying close to the teams and keep having conversations. I think that's definitely important, and generally trying to understand. I can imagine that there's so much going on as well. And so I don't have like the perfect answer because I can understand they're trying to track track gains, because this is something that I've been thinking about as well. Because when we launched our NFT collection, like initially I've thought a lot about, should we actually build like a game or an app on Abstract, right? And when we kind of decided like what direction, what's best for us as a brand, like how can we actually build this, like the number one thing for us is like expand the brands, right? Turning this into, we're going hard on Instagram, like onboarding people for the brand, introducing them to the characters, like people liberation, right? That's like our number one thing. And I think that's something that is not trackable on Abstract, but ultimately is also value. So I don't have a perfect answer, but I think, definitely, keeping close to the team, doing research. I do think there's some on-chain, volume, right? Like there's literally like one of our holders spent at least $15,000 last month on NFTs with us. I think those things are definitely tracked in our signals of, okay, people are actually spending high amounts of money on these collections, right? And they're consistently buying and buying more. And it's tough because on ETH, I feel like it's kind of Wild West. Like if you buy Final Basu and it would be on ETH, you're just buying Final Basu. On Abstract, is like you're buying Final Basu and at the same time you're betting on the chain, right? And so there's always that double judgment that is there. And so the closer you can be with each other, I think the better. And there's not that many NFT projects on Abstract, right? Like that are actively building. There's like literally a handful. And so I think it will benefit. And that was the first impression that I had as well, the first couple of months of like Luca, like, jumping literally on calls with us every couple of weeks, helping us, like making connections, things like that. I hope someday, even respect the hell out of how busy they are, right? But I hope some type of connection there would benefit all of us. Like we're going for consumer. Like Final Basu is full on building for consumer, and the bigger our audience becomes, the more it makes sense for us to drive that audience towards our collection, but maybe as well an app that we're building at some point, maybe on Abstract, right? So don't have the answer, but
I think he did have it in there though, and I don't. Easier said than done. But while I fully appreciate this world of AI and how we can be hyper efficient and we can leverage AI to do a lot of things, and you could track volume, but I think that can be gained. I think this is a scenario where it's a manual process. The team, and I think the team probably knows, like they know the ones I just rattled off. Like I'm not on the team. I'm not that deep. And I know who are like the real NFT communities on Abstract, at least some of them. I don't know all, but I can, the top 5 or 6 are pretty evident to me. And I think that this is a scenario where whether it's a singular individual or, a collective, or maybe it's a sub community made up of Abstract community members that help them identify the top NFT collections. And I don't know if it even has to be 5 or 6 or 10. I don't know if there's a finite number, but delineating who are the real communities versus what is just an NFT collection that's being farmed and wash traded so they can farm XP. I think manual is probably better than any reporting, any data, anything AI could do. I think this is just, you got to old school it, roll up the sleeves, and hey, there's also other good that can come from that. There's other good relationships if you have that constant communication with your leading teams. You're going to find out a lot more than just who are the real active NFT communities. Again, appreciate everyone being here. Quick reset. We're running a little long today, but I'll stick around as long as we've got hands that want to get in on this conversation. I will say we won't go to 11, but if you're looking to continue this conversation, I'll shield Jesus' space for him. He won't do it, but I pinned it up top. It has a great show. You get to hear from an idiot on there as well. That's at 11 o'clock Eastern here on X and on Abstract, assuming they're still streaming over there. I think they will be. But let me do this real quick. I need to get a market update in here. And then when we come back, we'll go. I saw Jesus' hand up. We'll go to Jesus. And then Quirky Quirk's been patient. And then we'll get Idiot back in here and anyone else that wants to continue the conversation. But let me do a quick daily market update. Just a quick flyer. It would take me a few seconds. This is brought to you by Awaken Tax. Head to awaken.tax to get your tax prep done. Use code coffee50 or return coffee50 to save $50 on that tax prep. More here in about 19 seconds.
It's market update time. Let's set the play. Powered by Awaken, the smart tax way. From curriculum flips to DeFi stacks. They keep it clean. Got your back. Grab your coffee. Let's break it down. Daily update. Right now.
This is our daily market update brought to you by Awaken Tax. Before I go to the market update, I gotta shout out the founder, Duca. Duca had his first big cook, his first post with over 25,000 likes, over 500,000 views. He says, and I don't usually say the R word. I know it's call me a boomer if you will. It's just it was ingrained in my head as a younger kid. Anyways, I'm gonna quote it maybe with one slight adjustment. He says, "Dude, did you just?" He's in quotes. "Dude, did you vibe code this slop? This feature sucks." Unquote. He says, "Been getting more of this recently, and no, I didn't vibe it. Did you ever consider for one single second that I might just be R word?" And I wrote this organic slop myself, question mark. The timeline loved it. But in all seriousness, go check out Awaken. Not only do you get $50 off using code Coffee50 or return Coffee50, they have this 1099 DA, this new form that's required. You probably got a notice from Coinbase or Kraken or any of the DEXs out there. You can get support with that 1099 DA from Awaken Tax for free. You don't even have to have the subscription. I will say the subscription, their software, it's better than CoinLink. Any of the other, if you've used a crypto tax software in the past and you didn't like it, it didn't work, go check out Awaken. Use code Coffee50 if you're a returning user. Return Coffee50. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. We have dozens of members in our Coffee with Captain community, the DGen War Room. Are big fans of Awaken and honored to be able to extend that discount to y'all. Reach out to Duca as well. He's very accessible if you have any questions. Extremely helpful team. Looking at the market, not a great one. We did have the Fed meeting yesterday. I'm not saying that's why it's down. Probably more geopolitical, Middle East crisis, oil, etc. That said, Bitcoin did drop below 70K. Down 3.39% on the day. ETH down to 21.26. My long did get stopped out yesterday. My first L. When now we're since we started that daily trade of the day. First we were running pretty pure there. Gave up most of the gains yesterday as the ETH long got stopped out. I was bullish on the prior day's news from the SEC and the CFTC, but it wasn't enough to overcome the global market conditions. ETH now 21.25. XRP down 1%. We might touch on them if we here in a bit as well. Just on the RWA front, BNB down 2%, Solana down 2% to $88, Doge down 2% to 9 cents, Hyperliquid down 5% on the day, but yet still, despite that dip, still up 5.71% on the week. Heading over real quickly to look at some NFTs. We do have a Zuki Gate. This is a free mint. Go check that out from OpenSea. It's an open edition celebrating they kicked off Anime Chain on OpenSea. And they also have, actually might have went live 17 minutes ago. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. The Anime TG or TCG mint does go live today. I'm not certain the time. I'll see if I can find it after I hand it off here in a sec. But I'm pretty sure that goes live today. May have just went live. But at minimum, it's a free mint to go get Azuki Gate. You can see there's already been 344,000 of those minted. And I'm a fan of OpenSea doing this. These editions, working with some of these NFT collections. I'm here for it. More of it. Not expecting any financial reward, but who knows? They're not saying this. I am. There could be some C allocation for that when we do get that TGE. Also, while I'm here, Rec Drinks, they did sell out their Burb Bubbly collaboration with the Moonbirds brand yesterday. Not only did they sell out, there's already been 32 ETH. They sold out within an hour. There's also been 32 ETH of secondary trading as well. So if you're looking to get a physical with your NFT purchase, you can still get on that. I'm not sure. Double check, make sure like redemption times, redemption dates. I don't know all the details off the top of my head, but congrats to the team. I mentioned Squiggles yesterday. I should have bought. They're up 20% of the day. The big winner. I'm not sure if there's a sweep or what drove it, but big winner in NFT land. Punks are flat at 29.98. Hypers rather are up 3%, 448 hype. Pudgy's down 1.9% to 4.15. Apes are basically flat at 5.21. Little Pudgy's down 2.7 to 0.44. Mutants down almost 2% to 0.76. Moonbird's flat at 0.97. Milady's up 2.8% to 1.34. Quirkies, not sure Poppy's still up here, but continue in their surge up another 3.8% to 1.14. Azuki down 1% to 0.71. That again is our daily market update. Doodles at 0.48, 2.9. Probably not going to get into that conversation today, but we'll save it for tomorrow. They made some digital creators big mad with their AI studios, which to me, I think that is actually bullish and part of what flipped me on my Doodle Studio take. Is it's definitely ruffled some feathers in the art, the 3D artist, digital artist land. Also, I just already stopped the screen share, but Del Mundo's. I said Squiggle's the big winner. Del Mundo's actually up 24% of the day, back up to 0.08. So seeing some movement there. Death and Tax is also up 54% to 0.03 ETH. Both new mints. Good Vibes Club 0.66, up 3% on the day. I was going to ask the question earlier. Probably not going to get into it, at least not in detail, but I will say the flyover. I think I mentioned it yesterday in a comment just about a year ago. Good Vibes Club was deciding. I think they originally planned to mint on Abstract. They pivoted and ultimately went minted on ETH mainnet, and has benefited them well. And I still think they get some support from that Abstract community. But again, congrats to the Good Vibes team. Jesus, I said I'd go to you next. I see an idiot's back up on stage, as well as Shallow One, and we got Quirky Quirk who's been patient. Jesus, did you want to get in here?
Yeah. It was a good conversation with Abstract. I'm glad he kind of, apologized to the community, corrected a few things. Yeah, I mean, like Hans came up on our space yesterday and was like, "Hey, it's 1 week. Let's see what happens next week." Like a lot of the aggravation I think comes from them playing with the system so much. The frustration is that TGE was probably already supposed to happen. So now they're trying to balance XP, and they're running out of tiers to build and new different, levels of XP, and how diluted is this getting, already. And then speaking of Bosu Kev, yesterday I think I seen 3 different NFT accounts that I haven't seen tweet or be really active in a long time. One of them got rid of all creator fees on OpenSea. They're like actively rewarding the community to start trading now, because they're trying to boost volume so they can remain relevant on the chain. So now you're going to start seeing, I think, some of this stuff, and I hope it doesn't happen where you start, there's the one thing on base was this like DXT or DXR. I can't remember what it was. It's one of the
Fraganas on Solana.
Yeah, it's just you're going to start seeing NFT collections, and holders farming and selling back to one another and creating fake volume. And so it doesn't matter. Abstract has always been in the beginning like, oh, this, we're not a farming chain. If your farmers are going to get cooked here, like, I'm sorry, everybody's going to figure out a way to farm shit and figure out how to game the system. A lot of people have been doing it. And they're obviously cracking down, but I also think they're hurting a lot of their loyal users. Saigar and them are very fast to adjust. So, I do like the direction that they're always going. But I really do hope they put some effort into improving the rewards for streamers. Because yesterday I got the least amount of XP I've ever gotten since I've been on chain. Since I've been on here. And I went from like 58,000 to 4,000. And I was like, whoa, shit.
That's a miss. I mean, I'm not, this isn't even like self-serving for me as a fellow streamer. Like, I know you're far deeper in the Abstract ecosystem than me. You've been passionate about it. You talk about it like every day on your space. You're like, that's just as I was, actually almost identical take on what I was saying with Bosu Kev. Like, you're the type of people, like, I get it's hard. They don't want to reward just every NFT collection or holding every NFT, just like they don't want to reward every streamer, because that also can be botted. Like we've never botted a space. Have there been bots in our chat? Sometimes they pop in there. It's nothing we've ever done. It's not a game I play. Yeah. It can be gamed, but identifying who I think it's probably a manual process. And at this point, they likely know, at least have a good idea. Might they miss some? Might they be perfect? No. But I think this is an area both for the streamers and the NFT brands that they need. I would suggest reaching out, kind of vetting who those, and maybe they do start with a number. Maybe it is, to make it easier, maybe it is the top 10 NFT brands. Maybe it is the top 10, top 50 streamers. I don't know the number, but I think this is something where simply on-chain data or viewership or comments or on-chain transactions, I don't think it's definitely flawed. It's far from perfect. And I think, like I said, they don't want to lose you. They don't want to lose Bosu. Like, this is where being nimble and making some changes to capture that, I think would benefit them greatly.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different, like when he was talking about the different roles, like in order to get Giga Chad, you're supposed to be active in the Discord. I'm not heavily in Discord. I'm in Telegram. I have a job. I have brands that I have to work for. I run my spaces. I do my streams. We talk about abstract daily, well over, like I said, well over a year. I haven't, me or Kyle, never been given Giga Chad. And then when you see other people come in and you get it, and they get it within like, a couple of months, it's like, well, hold the fuck on. But we're not in the normal abstract circles, which is a good thing.
To be completely honest, we have had Giga Chad's faces for like 6 months, but I don't even care, man. I'm clicking the buttons because I want to.
Yeah, but my point is though, you don't want people that are all within the same circle talking about abstract. You want people outside of the abstract circle talking about abstract, and that's how you grow the ecosystem. Then you support those people that are doing that. You know what I mean? By elevating their content. I've mentioned that there should be like there is the abstract ecosystems X account, then you have the abstract X account. And I've even mentioned maybe they should do an abstract community account, and they're highlighting different communities. And they're putting another Whoop campaign out there to go, hey, go clip Capstream, go clip mining our crypto grits, go whoever.
Candidly, speaking for myself, while do the clips help, does the added distribution, the added eyes help? Yeah. But something like more so than any extra views or eyeballs or new follows, just the fact that they're signaling, showing me that we're valued, we're appreciated, it's important. That means more than the XP. That means more than the added eyeballs on some clips. Like the little things like that go a very long way. Again, speaking for myself, that there's alignment. I talk about NFT brands, NFT communities, and being aligned with their holder base. Same thing on a chain base. Do you care about the people who are authentically and genuinely talking about and supporting what you're doing? And I think little things like that do go a very long way.
Yeah, 100%.
An idiot, I saw your hand fly back up. Go ahead and get back in here. And
real quick, I actually think Corkley was before me, but I'm about to get busy again here at work. I just came back up to address the XP thing. The way that they were, and I wish I could remember exactly who, but one of the team members in the earliest days was pretty transparent about the fact that XP for NFTs was based off of volume. The NFT collections that were at the top of the volume would get a bigger piece of the overall XP pie, as it were, for NFTs. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you do have, like you said, you can game that, right? You can wash trade a collection to the number one spot if you want to. So you just leave the option for manual adjustments in there. It's pretty obvious. It's not like there's 1,000 collections on abstract that have vibrant communities, right? That's not even true on mainnet anymore. So I think I'd like to see it get back to that. Just reward based on volume, and leave the option to manually adjust whenever there's some clear fuckery afoot. And then the only other thing, and Kev, I was going to ask you the other day, you and Yacht actually both were on Loki's space. I had requested, I got brought up, but I got kicked down pretty immediately. I think sometimes a Milady derivative PFP that I had on at the time makes people nervous if they don't know you. But just exactly what you were talking. You were kind of saying you guys had considered making a game or something. I was just going to ask exactly that. What did to both of you, since you're here? I know you guys have been working on your collector's profile for a while. Do you see the opportunity to maybe give out like an on-chain badge type of a thing, or something to various traits or whatever you're highlighting in your collector's profile, actually giving out something on chain that just generates a claim and a transaction, just to kind of benefit the number of transactions going on in your community?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're getting close to wrapping it up, and so I've actually had this conversation with the team the other day, and I'm looking into it on how we can play in on that. I think it's the right move, definitely, especially with the way we have set up the collector profile, because there's a lot of gamification towards it, and so there's definitely an option for that. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, it seemed like, I know Fugs has the collector's profile. I know that you guys have been working on that for a while. It just seems like some sort of badging system, maybe weekly badges or something, depending on what your thing looks like. It seems like an easier way than like building out a whole game that people may or may not be interested in. I mean, there's a lot of games that are already pretty good, right, on Abstract. So I don't know if the game thing is the way to go unless you're confident that you can make a really good game. But the collector's profile is very interesting.
I agree. Collector's profile, good move. And then the other thing I would add to that is like it doesn't have to be a full on forever game. Shout out to Thomas, who's reminding everyone you got about an hour left, or now about 30 minutes left to get your March Madness brackets in for Abstract Bearish. Same thing with Cool Chicks Mint, which is a simple one. You just mint, you get a team, and if that team gets to the Final Four, you're in the cash. Some of these Abstract Bearish March Madness brackets they're free to enter. You can get help with AI.
Hey, did you see the cease and desist they got? Because they used March Madness.
Yeah.
You got to call it Abstract Madness.
Abstract Madness, excuse me. Same thing. You can't say the Super Bowl without getting the NFL after. You got to call it the big game. But I guess my point, and not saying like Final Bowl should do a March Mad or an Abstract Madness tournament at this point. But my overarching point there is like sometimes like just like simple mini games. Like anytime you can do a community event, is there a way that you can bring that on chain? And I'm not one just to put something on chain, just to put it on chain. But in this case, the enhancement is you're helping your community and your brand garner more XP and more attention from the parent brand at this point. So I could be persuaded either way, but I do think this might be a scenario where like short-term mini games, ways to just drive activity for your community specifically on Abstract might be better than like going in and trying to build a full-out game, which is tough, expensive, and most of them don't stick. One more quick segment, and then we got Quirky Quirk. Appreciate your patience. I saw Shalowin's hand fly up. I'm not seeing any other hands. We have had some challenges with X this morning. It's just been a little finicky, but we will get through everyone before we close it down. At least I'll do my best. Abstract Mania, also good idea. Their DGLT trophies. Here is, man, things have been. It's not just me saying this because it's a one of our favorite sponsors. The RWA industry is booming, and it's not just me. It's not just people. It's now starting to take off on X. People are noticing RWA growth is parabolic. Here's a chart I got from Graham Ferguson. It's just it really started. I mean, it existed. Those of us been here. We've been talking RWA since I can remember. I mean, since like quite literally since 2021, and it just really didn't take off until about September of last year. We saw a little bit. It grew through November, December, and then all of a sudden January hit, and it has just went boom, like hockey stick in February, March. I don't think it slows down. I think it continues to grow from here. And with that, I do want to play in our quick keeping it real segment intro. This is brought to you powered by Doma. I'll be right back, and we'll do a quick live read, and then we'll go to Quirky Quirk, and then then Shalowin, and then we'll probably work on getting out of here. I do need to wrap before 11, but 1 second.
Buying domains was low, Doma changing the game. One bridge, one standard, now the systems move the same. Registrar, stay central, keep the trust and control. DNS and compliance, still they play the key role. Traded on chain, let new markets arise. Domain value unlocked. Welcome to DomainFi.
It's the first time you've heard about Doma. I'd recommend after the show, go check them out, doma.xyz. They're bringing a $360 billion industry on chain with domains. One of the oldest, most efficient real world assets out there that most people don't necessarily think of at RWA, but that absolutely is a real world asset. And if you're like me, you've probably bought and sold or bought and held a lot of domains. You have a great idea. You go buy the domain, you register the .com, the .xyz, the .info, etc. And then a year later, it comes up for renewal and you've not shipped any business yet with it. You've not done anything with your idea. Although I will say with AI now, it's a lot easier to take an idea and turn it into at least an MVP. But now you don't have to just sit on those idle domains. You don't have to just wait to sell it someday maybe or build a business. You actually can make it productive with Doma by bringing it on chain. You can fractionalize it. You can help create subdomains, liquidity pools, all kinds of exciting stuff. More on that soon. I will post a recent show we started doing with Doma on Air. We're going to do that every couple of weeks. But before I forget, Doma, they have their big Dominion conference coming to Vegas it piggybacks off of Bitcoin Vegas. I just saw Julie and Joxy. Joxy was in the chat earlier. Great to connect with you. I think that we just first connected. Longtime fan of Julie, and Julie put out some great content. One of the underrated streamers and content creators in the space, in my opinion. She says they're going to take the city by storm. Can't wait to take you all for the ride. Want to team up? DMs are open. See you in Vegas for Bitcoin for the Bitcoin conference. Again, Doma and Dominion. That same week, it's April 29th through 30th at Resorts World. Stick around. We're not going to do it today, but we have some. There still is an early bird special, and we're going to have some discounts, some free passes for those who are going to be in Vegas. Stick around and attempt to get one of those free or greatly discounted passes to attend Dominion. Some incredible, again, from the domain industry, some big movers and shakers will be there in attendance, and great opportunity to connect with people who are really, we talk about leveraging blockchain to move an industry forward, and they're absolutely doing that. Over 300 million, 90 domains out there. They're the world's first blockchain to tokenize and unlock that liquidity. And that's our Keeping It Real segment brought to you by Doma. More on that soon. That said, Quirky Quirk, appreciate your patience. Thanks so much for keeping that hand up. GM, take it whichever direction you'd like.
Sounds good. GM Cap, GM everybody. Yeah, been a great chat so far. So many threads, obviously, to discuss, especially as got my hand up patiently. But yeah, I think that between your epic market readouts and commercials these days, you definitely got a future in those pharma side effect readouts. I think, Cap, maybe auctioneering or something because you've got it down. But yeah. So first of all, like abstract hot dogs, is it like Chicago style, New York style? What are we talking about here? Do you know?
Good question. I am not a hot dog fan. If I am, I would do a ballpark. I would do a ball. I think I'm going to go to a spring training game this Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
I will probably eat a hot dog at the ballpark. For some reason, I can't explain it. It actually doesn't even matter which ballpark, which brand of hot dog. They just taste significantly different. Like I'm kind of grossed out by a hot dog if I'm eating it at home, but for some reason at a ballpark, it's delicious. But yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're ballpark hot dogs. I don't know though.
Yeah. Sometimes those kosher ballpark franks, man, those hit differently, and it's like real meat, not this fake stuff. But but anyway, I think I might maybe spin up like an abstract glizzies project after this. So if you want to go for that, hit me up. But yeah, no. But anyway, back to the topic. So yeah, I've got an elite chat role, I think, in abstract community, thanks to like Quirkies and Poppy, but like admittedly been a bit outside of it and haven't really been paying as much attention to it as I probably should be. But like this conversation has been really interesting and should definitely I'm going to definitely dig back into it now that I've heard what I've heard and been doing a lot of vibe coding myself. So Abs chat, it was good to see him and listen to that. That just gives me a better feel for what's going on there, and I feel like it was very pertinent and relevant to what was going on earlier and how to communicate, because that felt like a pretty emotionally intelligent and communicative clinic on like how to handle stress and address it right on. So definitely appreciate that. And then earlier, like a lot of what you said earlier about like how to win friends and influence people, honestly, that book was like straight up changed my life. I think it's been one of those books that when I read it, I was definitely much more in that sort of like chill mode always. And this was like obviously way pre NFT world, but where you sort of get in this place of only talking about yourself and like what you're up to and not really listening to people. So I think that was a great reframe for me. That and also the one that Poppy mentioned, the Emotional Intelligence 2.0. One other book I wanted to throw out there, which I found really good, is called The Go Giver. Have you heard of that one, Cap?
I've not. Can you spell it for me?
Yeah, it's just GO-GIVER.
Go Giver. Got it. No, I'll check it out.
Go Giver. Yeah, it's really good, but it's like same along the lines of that. It's like, okay, and it's kind of interesting and probably actually is really applicable for the space that we're in, because everyone here, I feel like you get up, you chill a lot of times, right? But it's all about kind of flipping that script and like being like, okay, what can you do for other people, knowing that like the more that you help others, the more that it comes back around. And I think a lot of us have come around to that. But I think the initial instinct in this space is just to like get up here and show your project, show your space, show your whatever, right? So it's been really interesting. And one of the things that definitely resonates with me on that is like, I'm in healthcare and like health tech, and I'm part of this pretty like high level life sciences networking group with like, some major VCs and big banks and operators. And there's this group that I'm a part of, and their whole motto is to like, quote, find someone, help, and repeat. And it really kind of resonates with all of those things, and I think we could definitely use a lot more of that in this space. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. But also too, like I think it's funny, like Jesus. I always think of like what would Jesus do? So maybe like a WWCD might be
dig
his
it.
next thing. Yeah,
I dig it.
yeah. I don't know, but and then a couple last things here. So like I said, I mentioned earlier, I've been digging into the vibe coding rabbit hole. And like, I was building an AI motion analysis platform for some medical providers and like have really, really gone down the rabbit hole in some ways that I, as an HTML only knowledge base, like should have no reason to be able to build the kind of things that I'm building. So it was cool to listen to Abstract talk about like building on the abstract chain and kind of the things that he was thinking about. So I actually might take a stab at that because it's really fun to be building. And along those lines, there's like a pretty awesome group of people, a lot of people who are actually here in the community right now, like Jeremy Knows and Micro and Pyra from Bad, Mason and all like, but we've had this awesome like group text thread recently where all of us have been building our like OpenClaw setups for the last month now or a little more. And like daily, we're just like sharing things back and forth on best practices and different skills, sharing back and forth. It's been absolutely wild to see the kind of things that we've been able to do and kind of relevant to the next hour and a half. I actually just had my bot do like a super deep dive analysis on like historical trends and analytics to make me an epic bracket. So I'm trying to see where this thing might take me, but I'm hoping it takes me to the Kalshi $1 billion, but we'll see.
Hey, good luck. Another bracket plug there. Kalshi has if you get a perfect bracket, you win $1 billion. Extremely unlikely. No one's ever done it. Berkshire Hathaway or Warren Buffett did it prior to Kalshi, but it's not just the $1 billion for the perfect bracket. I think the top bracket, the winner actually gets $1 million, and I think it's free to enter. So go get your brackets filled out. I said an hour. I actually it's till noon. So you got an hour and 20 minutes to get your brackets. And I pinned both the bearish link up top as well as Cool Chicks Mints. Cool Chicks is minting right on OpenSea. Really easy to go do. You get your March Madness bracket. This will reveal. This will turn into a team. And if the team makes it to the Final Four, you're in the cash. If it wins, you win obviously first place. Bearish, if you're not familiar, it's just mania.bearish.af. You can also get that from their official account, which is also pinned up top. And they've got a few different options with again AI assisted to fill out those pools. But if you're in Z, again, all these are free entries, so may as well go support our girl, Cool Chick, longtime fan of the show, just one of the great ones, very active and supports so many others in the space. Would love to see anyone who's got it. It's about $20 to mint that ticket and get you a little sweat for the bracket, and then go check out Bearish. You got an hour and 17 minutes remains until the first game tips. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't give the Miami of Ohio team a shout out. I know our guy B Epic, a big fan there. They won last night despite being the 6.5 point underdogs. I actually said it on this show that I would bet Miami because I felt it and I did not take action. So I left some free money on the table there. I hope someone else tailed my paper trading, but good luck to everyone. I hope someone hits a perfect bracket there. That would be amazing. Even going perfect the first round is a pretty big accomplishment. But
I think my bot's got it. What do you think, Cap?
I mean, it's I would say it does. Other than I think there's probably thousands of other people this year filling out brackets that are doing so with the hope of having a perfect bracket. So you're probably competing with a lot of. I would say this: if you have a bracket that's filling out a bracket, or you have AI filling out a bracket for you, I would at least make a change or two, like manually change one thing, because there's likely someone else ran the same prompt in the same LLM and it spit out the exact same bracket, and you want to be unique in these things. So yeah, pick one thing to differentiate from your AI output. Would be my suggestion.
I don't want to split. I don't want to split $1 billion. That'd be too little. I'm not splitting $1 billion.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I would, if I'm going to split any prize pools, that would be the one to split.
I did pick up that Bracket Madness though NFT. That was a good shout out. So thanks for all you do, Cap. And then one last thing. We've been like, if anybody else is building OpenClaw stuff, would love to connect with people because it's absolutely wild. And like we've been actually starting a quick change it on the fly space, we're calling it, where we're just gonna get together and talk about it and kind of live talk through all the building we're doing, like what's working, what's breaking. So if that's your vibe, literally come and hang with us. Happy to have people.
Awesome. Great guy. Go connect with Quirky Quirk if you're doing the vibe coding. Be Epic, safe travels on your way to Philly. Shallow one, get in here. Last thoughts, comments. I saw Anthony jumped up. If you want to get in here before we close down, throw up a hand. I'll get to you as well. And apologize for anyone that we weren't able to get up on stage today or had to bounce before we got to you. But Shallow one, GM.
GM, glad to get back into this. I thought that was really interesting points that you made, and I wish I had a chance to listen to Abjad to hear the comments. I think the general idea though that is probably shared is that they've gone really from consumer app to DeFi, right? Or at least transactions and transaction based activity.
Yep.
I think when listening to Kevin too from Bosu, the difficulty really is having to again really pivot and understand like the validity of what they're trying to do and actually be relevant. I think the thing that takes me back though, it's kind of like, do we do this thing so that we're just utilizing the same pool of people when it comes to the space, right? And that's just do all these transactions because for the most part, even upvoting is a transaction. Logging into the DApp is a transaction. All these different things are trying to drive all of these different interactions, engagement, and it is simple in the sense that you don't have to use your direct wallet and then go through the process, but just use Abstract. I think my problem though is as a builder in this space too, it's one of those difficult things that you have to juggle. You almost have to have a separate gaming team to like dominate the timeline and
Yep.
how it works, in addition to building to a wider audience. And I think there's the conundrum, right? Like that's the intersection of like the ones that are going to do it best. But I feel like the more they get into the transaction game, the less people who are non-native to the space are going to be turned off. And I feel like that has to be the thing that everyone works on because again, I talked to different builders within Abstract. It seems to be the case where you have to build that with that in mind, but I feel like it's a huge pivot because ideally, it's supposed to be one of those things that you're just supposed to have value when you just interact with a chain in an organic, native way versus like, oh, I seem to have to interact every single time I want to do anything. And I think that's one of the problems that we have. So from a retention and a community perspective, yeah, that's part of the game, but I feel like there's got to be a balance. And if that's the case, then why not just bring on more DeFi? Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that there's not enough DeFi players who want to participate in it because they feel like it's just a consumer chain. So we're going to continue to see like the Zeets trying to influence and impact. You're going to start seeing NFTs changing the way they already have in terms of creating gamification of the transaction themselves. I just don't know how it really moves the space forward. I feel like if they were able to like onboard partners that were more on that side of it, and then they carry and focus and go back to what was the original concept of, Abstract as a consumer chain, we would have a better feel for like the direction where of at least I'd be a lot more optimistic in terms of the direction of where it's headed. When it comes to games, honestly, like you're right, whether it's seasonal to like a March Madness, whether it's seasonal to a holiday, there's lots of ways you can, vibe code. The real reality is how do you do that in a way that's, user acquisition based? And just to kind of give a nod to your conversation at RWA, I think that's actually something that we're doing as a publisher at Warp is that really focusing on that user acquisition funding to really help support a lot of this and using organic communities to really drive the vibe and the feel of what the expectation is in terms of how consumers come on chain and actually interact in this space in a way that's native, right? And then the last point too is, it's really good to hear a lot of the different community members because in the end, I think you're right. We're trying to have constructive conversations that push the needle, that create elevated conversation and not just shit posting. Not to say that shit posting isn't great, but the reality is Abstract really, I think, even though they're headed towards a shift, it would be a good course correction to kind of have a two-prong approach, which is still leans into streamers, still leans into distribution, but also still focuses on ways to encourage developers and founders to add that extra gamification layer to it without having to cannibalize all of their other efforts and creating something that's more meaningful, in terms of retention. Because I feel like the more you lean into the gambling side and transaction side, you just lose a lot of people because it's just a huge turnoff. Anytime I have a conversation with friends, family, people who are learning about the space, I feel like the more times you have to touch a wallet and do it, again, although it's important, it just leans away from it. So if there's better ways to go about it, it'd be ideal. Even when I onboard, money, I find a lot of dApps do it better than even Abstract themselves, whether it's using Dilly, whether it's using other dApps on their chain. It's a lot less friction.
Yep.
But it's just one of those things. I'm just like, there's got to be a better moat.
Really tough dynamic. It's like you basically have conflicting goals, right? Like you want to drive the transactions, the vanity metrics for funding for TGE. At the same time, most of that stuff is kind of a turnoff to not even just like the consumer, the non-crypto natives, but a lot of people like the NFT communities. Like you don't want to force a community to transact, like to do a bunch of pointless transactions. I mean, that's not much different than bots. It's really tough needle to thread. And I also am glad Abs Chad was able to join us today. I meant what I said. I feel a lot better about streaming and Abstract. I also meant what I said about like how you say things is important, and acknowledge that he owned it, and respect. The same thing with, very similar with Adam coming on the day after OpenSea's announcement, like own this stuff. You get a lot more. Are you gonna make everyone happy? No. Is everyone gonna leave here like an abstract bull? No. But at least they're not hiding from it. At least they're not disappearing and not I guess at a loss for an analogy this morning. But I thought it was a good conversation. I think there was some good suggestions that came out of the show today. I also found that, hey, I'm going to work on see if I get that extension turned on so I can give back some of the tip love that I've been very fortunate. So many generous viewers over there on Abstract. I'd love to be able to give some of that back. And now there's a third party solution.
That was the one thing I was going to say too. I forgot about that. I know you can't directly tip back in the chat, but you can see their profile, and their profile, I believe, has their wallet address and everything.
Good call.
So with some extra clicks, you
can
do
I mean, obvious, makes sense. Just hadn't, I don't know why I haven't thought of that, but yeah, the great call on that one. And also shout out to DGTL. I'm probably getting the acronym wrong, but that's the sort of stuff, like maybe not to take it from DGTL, but like whether it's mini games, mini apps, things like that, I think what Abstract has been clear on, while the XP may be somewhat opaque, we know what's important to them, and they want to see these transactions. They want to see like the DeFi-esque activity, the AI agent activity. So like, is there something in that world that makes sense for what you're building? Can you at least be thinking that way? Like, is there something that you can add to your project, add to your NFT community, add to your streaming that may help? Like in my case, I know I would have got more XP last week had I tipped. Steve and I used to alternate. We do my Abstract stream one day, his the next, and vice versa. And every day, like the first thing I would do when it was Steve's, I would send a tip. It was a transaction. It was a light lift, low effort, low cost transaction. And I haven't been jumping into other streams. I haven't been doing that. And so like even something as simple as that, to your point, yes, I can do that today. Just got to remember, got to take a few extra steps. I do think it'd be cool to be able to see, just to drive that back and forth, just like how Be Epic and Crypto King were like going. Crypto King tipped 500 and Be Epic came over the top with 700, and then Crypto King came back with another 201 to make it a total of 701. Like it's like fun little mini games inside a chat. Like to be able to participate in that as a streamer would is it going to change the world? No, but would be nice little ads, nice to haves. But all that being said, I saw Anthony. Anthony, did you want to get in here real quick before we shut things down?
No, I don't want to hold you guys up. I didn't realize I was jumping back in at the end. That's quite all right.
All good, man. Good. We'll get you. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you coming up. And one of these days, happy to get you into the conversation. I will say, appreciate everyone who, I truly this is my favorite shows where even though we stuck on one topic pretty much for the most part, the majority of the day, I really do enjoy these very interactive participatory shows where we get to hear from so many people, not just hear from, helps me make connections. I know a lot of you, you know a lot more about me than I know about you. You get to hear me every day. I really do enjoy hearing from all of you. I feel it helps deepen those relationships. And I do like, we will remain a community show. And the shows were, it's a better show because of the support and so many of you that add to the show, whether it's comments in the chat, whether it's jumping on stage. Oftentimes it's, I'm guessing someone probably pinged Abschud today, said, hey, they're talking about you. They're talking about, the XP and as a result, he ended up here in the show. Thank you. Whoever did that. Appreciate it. Thanks to GMB who jumped up on stage and helped with that conversation. Thanks to Lakey, who I just saw posted out a clip, hadn't yet connected, just gave you a follow back, one of those elite chads over there. Like all this stuff really does It is greatly appreciated. Really does help. And great to connect with all of you. Appreciate everyone on the team, those in the community, found NFT founders and leaders like Kev, who jumped up on stage, Jesus and Idiot, as always, bringing the fire. Again, go hit their show up here in about 5 minutes. They kick off on X, as well as Abstract. And in closing, we probably will dig into a little bit of this tomorrow. It was on my docket today, somewhat evergreen. I mentioned in passing that Doodle's AI studio had ruffled some feathers in the creator world. Michael, a 3D traditional artist, says abolish Gen AI, calls it slop. Roman Revert, a little more direct and aggressive, says go F yourself. And this went viral, 17,000 likes, 400,000 views. I know the 3D artists apparently don't like this stuff. This is per his profile was with Illumination, Lorax, Despicable Me, Minions. So I don't know Roman. Apparently, probably a very talented 3D artist and director. I don't think this is the way forward. Like AI is not going anywhere. You're going to see more and more and more of this. Like, how can you use it to enhance what you're doing? How can you I'm sure it went viral, so probably resonated with a lot of people. But Loki says, "Go dude yourself." It doesn't ruffle feathers if it's a nothing burger. I'll just say that. So kind of changed my thoughts on dudes. And then last little nugget. We'll probably talk about that a little more tomorrow. At least I just wanted to share the tweets if you missed them. Last little nugget, big news, breaking news. The CFTC in Major League Baseball just signed the first ever MOU between a sports league and a federal agency. This is from Mike Seelig, the chairman of the CFTC, says who's very bullish prediction markets. Says we've committed to work together to protect the integrity and resilience of prediction markets relating to professional baseball. Through this partnership, the CFTC is well positioned to add additional tools to protect the markets from fraud, manipulation, and other abuses. Thanks to MLB and Commissioner Manfred for working with us to protect the integrity of these growing markets. Read the full thing here. I'm not going to read the full thing, but I will probably punt that to tomorrow. It's good. It's a good, the reality is sports betting, player props, prediction markets, it does open up opportunity for insider trading. And I'm not talking insider trading like, oh, you got wind of something, but baseball players throwing games. This is a known issue. On Emmanuel Clase for the closer for the Guardians is I think lifetime suspension because he was he would bet or tell people to bet on the first pitch is going to be a ball and he'd throw a ball. It may seem small in that example, but several thousands of dollars were traded, and it just anything like that impacts the integrity of any game, baseball, football, sports, other stuff. I think especially sports, though, it is important that they maintain integrity, and they can't have players throwing games or throwing pitches or impacting the outcome because they're standing to personally benefit on a financial side because they're betting on a prediction market or player props or whatever. So I think this is a good step. I just saw that headline. I have no idea what it actually entails, but I think it's a positive sign that MLB is working with the CFTC to protect the integrity. All that being said, we got to get you out of here. Go check out Jesus and Idiot Show here at 11. We'll be back tomorrow. If you're new here, we go live every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday, everyone.